بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم في هذا الصباح المشرق الجميل في الجمعية العلمية الملكية. Good morning everybody. Good morning who are joining us virtually. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really honored and privileged to have such a professional group here in person at RSS premises and through Zoom. We're really glad to have participants from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq, Egypt, and from UK and Jordan. And I'd like to thank our colleagues from the UK. I know it's quite early in the UK at the moment. It's about like 7 a.m. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we are going to learn about controlled environment agriculture and to answer some questions. What does controlled environment agriculture mean? What is the latest research about controlled environment agriculture? Can controlled environment agriculture play a role in climate change adaptation and food security under dry conditions? All of these questions and others will be discussed during this symposium. I'm not going to talk much, in fact, in this symposium. I'll leave the floor to my colleague, Engineer Rafat Asi, the Vice President and the Executive Director for Sustainable Solutions at RSS. Please, Engineer Rafat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الضيوف الكرام الأعزاء جميعا، أصحاب المعالي الدكتور محمود دويري، الدكتور رضا الشبلي، أصحاب العطوفة جميعا، الدكتور عبد الله الموسى، السيد نبيل عساف ممثل فاو، جميع الزملاء والإخوة من كل مكان، أهلا وسهلا بكم. سأحول إلى الإنجليزية مشان ضيوفنا الناطقين بالإنجليزية.
By the way, we have translation. So colleagues who are joining virtually, they can click on like a button in the lower bar for translation. And الشباب اللي هون بيكتبوا translation عربي إنجليزي عربي في headset. تمام.
Good to know. Your Excellencies, colleagues and friends, good morning. I would like first to convey Her Royal Highness Princess Sumaya bint Al-Hassan, RSS President, apologies for not being able to attend this event for some urgent commitments. She asked me to convey her best wishes for a successful event and a fruitful discussion for today. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you all in person and virtual attendees to exchange experiences and to learn more about the concept of controlled environment agriculture and its potential to achieve sustainability and resilience in the MENA region and in the food systems. We are happy to have participants from Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, in addition to participants from UK and Jordan. More than 130 persons have registered to attend this event virtually along with many in person. Thank you all for your joining. The Royal Scientific Society of Jordan is an independent, non-for-profit, non-governmental organization. It is a multidisciplinary science institution established by Royal Charter, founded in the year 1970 as a national organization to actively support the development of Jordan with sound technical policy advice, testing services, and consultation. The RSS, since its establishment in 1970, has been working to protect human health and safety, to safeguard the environment and Jordan's precious natural resources, and to help define and deliver sustainable economic development. With more than 50 years of accumulated knowledge and technical skills, the RSS is the largest and oldest science reference point for Jordan. We have in our campus more than 350 researchers and technical staff, and in total 650 employees, and 44 nationally and internationally accredited laboratories conducting more than 200,000 tests annually. This symposium has been organized by Water Environment and Climate Change Center at RSS. This center is part of Sustainable Solutions sector at RSS, along with National Energy Research Center, NERC, and Building Research Center, BRC. The sector with its three technical centers provides multi and interdisciplinary research, consultations, and studies to serve sustainable development in Jordan, and also to tackle global, national, regional, and global challenges such as food security and climate change. This symposium comes as part of Frontiers Champions program, a program that is organized and funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering in the United Kingdom and aims at supporting selected Frontiers Champions to undertake activities that tackle global challenges such as food security, water scarcity, and climate change. We are proud that Dr. Al-Muayyad Sayyid, the Director of Water, Environment, and Climate Change Center at RSS, has been one of the Frontiers Champions for this year. I would like to thank the Royal Academy of Engineering, University of Plymouth, and King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology for their support in organizing this symposium. I would like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation for Her Royal Highness Princess Sumaya for patronizing this event and for her continuous support. Thank you all for joining, and I wish you a happy and fruitful discussions for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, now we are going to introduce Professor Mick Fuller. Professor Mick Fuller is a professor of plant physiology in the School of Biological and Marine Sciences in the University of Plymouth, and has active research group working on aspects of controlled environment growth of plants. His current research is funded by Agritech grants from EU, ERDF, Newton Fund, and the British Council. He is currently working on projects associated with optimization of LED light fittings for plant. LED light fittings for plant factories in association with industrial partners from across the southwest of the UK. He has supervised more than 40 and examined over 50 PhD research students from across the world, and has published more than 200 research papers and reports in plant sciences. Mick has been the chair of the UK Controlled Environment Users Group for the last 5 years and is a fellow for the Royal Society of Biology. Mick Fuller, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours, Mick.
Thank you.
You can share your screen from your side, if you don't mind.
Okay, I shall try and do that now.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it tells me I cannot share the screen while the other participant is sharing.
Okay, so we need to stop sharing from our side, my colleagues, Al-Oula, Shabab Al-Oula.
Go to full screen. Right, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I thank a big thank you to Hail Rehan, who's my colleague on this presentation, who has done much of the organization with you to make this happen. Well done, Hail. And you'll hear a longer talk from Hail later today. Okay, just a quick overview to give you some inclination of what we've been doing over the last 4 or 5 years at the University of Plymouth in controlled environment agriculture. So we have built a facility at Plymouth, and that facility allows us to conduct research in a replicated manner, which allows us to do scientific analysis of the results and be confident in what we have discovered. This summary slide shows some of the aspects of that, but I'm going to go into this in more detail as we go through the rest of this talk. You will see on this slide down the right-hand side, there are a lot of names of companies or organizations, and these are the people that we have been working with on this project. which has been definitely focused on transferring technology to industry. And along the bottom, some of the funders and some of the academic organizations that we have been working with, including CAXT, which I'm very happy to hear from this afternoon and to see that facility that we've helped them develop. Okay. So we started basically with a redundant greenhouse, and we built a insulated building around it. And that building contained 2 hydroponic systems. One, a nutrient film technique, which is on the right of the building at the top, and another, an ebb and flow technique, which are 2 different commonly used systems. Well, we installed whole solar panels on the top of that in order to provide us with some of the energy that was going to be required. And we have a battery system in there, lithium battery and system will actually store most of the energy, and we can utilize that when we need it. Also on the bottom right, you can see there's the basics of the hydroponic tanks, and we have a control system in there which allows us to regulate the nutrient solution and the dosing of the nutrients to the plants. And finally, in the bottom left-hand corner of this slide, we use this particular instrument to measure the photosynthetic output of our lights, or in other words, the photo irradiance of the lights, and so that we know exactly how many photons are being delivered and in what wavelength they are being delivered to. The last 2-3 years here, we've been focusing on using plants, pharmacological plants, and you can see a picture here of Heil on the right with some really nice lemon balm that he's grown in the plant factory quite easily, actually, and a really a summary of some of the plants that are used in medicine. And I know this is just a few of over 30 or 40,000 plants that have been screened for medicinal benefits. And the reason why we focus on this is because of the added value that this actually gives in the UK to an expensive capital operation. But I'll say more about that in a minute. Our researchers basically focused in on the visible light spectrum. And as you know, this ranges from red to blue and then into ultraviolet, as you can see here in this facsimile here. And we started our work by looking at the absorbance spectrum of plants. And here's the absorbance spectrum of basil, which is it's extract of the pigments taken from basil and then illuminated at various different wavelengths to see what our absorption pattern is actually like. And then we try to look at that pattern and design LED light fittings that will actually match that particular absorbance pattern, trying to optimize and maximize the outputs of the LED lights and make sure that they are fit for purpose to grow that particular crop. Now, the interesting thing about this approach, if I superimpose upon here the absorption spectrum of chlorophyll, is that for basil, you can see at the right-hand side in the red region, there is almost a perfect match in some of the absorbance spectra for chlorophyll A. And in the blue spectrum end of the LED spectrum, you can see there's absorption spectrum for both chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B pigments. But there is also a massive absorbance peak to the left of the blue in the ultraviolet. And this is really interesting. And the hypothesis that we've developed here is that plants actually are exposed and have evolved to develop a resistance to ultraviolet in the natural environment, which is actually quite damaging to potentially to their DNA. So they have to absorb the energy because they can't get up and get out of the sun like we can. They have to sit there all day in the sun and they have to deal with it. And therefore, they have to absorb the high energy rays coming from the ultraviolet part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and they have to put that energy into something. Now, that energy is so powerful that they cannot utilize it in photosynthesis. So they have these absorbance pigments in the ultraviolet zone, which allow them to absorb that energy and put it into secondary metabolites or storage materials, which are of no harm to the plant. Now, all plants have developed this ability, some more than others, and it's those secondary metabolites that have been developed during that evolution that have focused us and allowed us to exploit some of those compounds as medicines. And that is really interesting because it, for the first time, gives us the opportunity to look at illuminating plants in that area of the spectrum and specifically upregulating or control regulating the production of good, important, beneficial compounds to mankind. So designing and fitting our controllable LED lighting fixtures has been a key feature of our research, and we've worked with a lot of lighting companies, and they have actually designed for us specific LED bars or LED panels, and we've put those into our plant factory. We have a we can take them out, fit them into various different shelves so that we can replicate the system. And this has been very, very important to us in terms of determining a few fundamental principles of this work going forward. We also added into those designs the ability to dim the intensity of light coming from them for every single wave band of light that we've actually designed, so that we can control up and down the red, the blue, the ultraviolet, and whatever color we've actually fitted in there, the LEDs. Okay. So a little bit of the results you can see here, and I just don't want to focus on this too terribly much, but you can see on the left-hand side of this slide, these are the essential oil yields of some plants we've grown in the plant factory. And you can see that just by altering the wavelengths of the light, so these are different types of lights, you can almost control the essential oil production by about a factor of 100%, just by controlling the wavelengths. And on the black bars at the bottom, were one of the key differences here, the two bars in the middle, which are significantly different, is just 15 nanometer shift in the blue. And therefore, we're able to show that we can vary the essential oil content per plant just by very, very small changes in the blue spectrum, which becomes significant later. On the right, we're working with our biomedical colleagues in the university and a medical facility, medical research facility, and they are testing some of the oils in plants, in human cell lines, to be able to see whether there is any potential for suppressing incurable cancer cell lines like mantle cell lymphoma. And we found some significant effect here, and we are looking at the phenotypic output of those, and also the genotype and the metabolism of those particular systems to see which chemicals and which cell systems are actually targeting to give us control. Furthermore, we can work with our chemistry colleagues, and we have looked at the GCMS traces of these particular plants that we've grown under these various LEDs. And this is just a simple illustration. I'm not going to go into any detail, but you can see on here that some of the peaks, so this is exactly the same plant, but grown under just 4 different types of light environment. And you can see that the peaks vary considerably. And some of these peaks are really important peaks, which are active in our cancer cell line suppression research as well. So we've proved a concept with this type of research, and we are looking now actively at exploiting this through contracts and research projects with commercial companies. It's born the idea of the agri-pharmacy. And the important thing about the agri-pharmacy, which is a plant factory growing these pharmaceutical plants, is that we get this precision environmental control. We get consistent crop production with high yield, maximize and consistent biochemical profile, clean, uncontaminated product, photovoltaic power supply and recycled nutrients and water, year-round production opportunities independent of the weather, and small to medium-sized production capacity because of the high value of these products. And this gives us a maximum return on capital investment. So this is the actual direction that we've taken after 3 or 4 years of research, looking at vegetable crops and salad crops to prove our concept. But then to add value within the UK, we focused down this agri-pharmacy route. And that's an ongoing research that we're doing with industry at the moment. And I think that's probably about as much as I've got time for. So I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Fuller. This is very interesting, and we're really looking forward to enhancing collaboration with the University of Plymouth, and I was discussing with Dr. Hale Rayhan to establish like a platform for all colleagues and professors who are working on controlled environment agriculture to find other rooms for collaboration. Well, thank you so much. Now I'm glad to introduce Dr. Abdullah Al-Rajhi from King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. Dr. Al-Rajhi is the director for the National Center for Agricultural Technology at CAXT, as well as the director of the Joint Center for Environment, Water and Agricultural Research. Dr. Al-Rajhi research interests are related to agricultural and water use, plant water requirements, deficit irrigation, alternative water resources in agriculture, and using of hydroponic system in dry climate. His research focus is directed at serving the recent transformations and trends of the agricultural sector in the kingdom. In particular, the issues related to reducing water consumption in the agricultural sector, which is of a major challenge facing the sector currently. Dr. Al-Rajhi, floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Shukran, Dr. Muayyad. My presentation will be in Arabic. هل العرض واضح الآن؟
نعم.
ممتاز. نعم. بسم الله. بهذه المحاضرة بإذن الله سأتحدث على عجالة، محاول إثارة بعض النقاط اللي أعتقد أنها مهمة إثارتها للتطرق عن الزراعة وعن الأمن الغذائي وبالذات التقنيات الزراعية ومنها الزراعة العمودية. سأستعرض بداية وضع دول منطقة المينا بمؤشر الأمن الغذائي العالمي وأثر المياه على هذا المؤشر في المناطق، ونستعرض كمثال المملكة العربية السعودية سأستعرضها بشكل موسع، ثم بعد ذلك نتحدث عن أهم المحاصيل الاستراتيجية على مستوى العالم وعلى مستوى دول منطقة المينا، ثم الإمكانية التقنية الزراعية وبالذات الزراعة العمودية في إضافة ما يمكن رفعه من الأمن الغذائي لهذه الدول. الآن واضح الدرجات اللي تم التحصل عليها في مؤشر الأمن الغذائي العالمي، وهذه الدرجات تم التحصل عليها من مجموعة من المؤشرات اللي سنستعرضها في الشريحة القادمة. يلاحظ أنه مثلا دول مجلس التعاون الخليجي تحظى بوضع مناسب إلى حد ما في مستوى مؤشر الغذاء العالمي مقارنة بباقي دول المينا التي يوجد بعض الدول فيها تقع في مناطق متأخرة. السبب حقيقة في ذلك يعود إلى التقسيمات التي تؤدي إلى حساب قيمة أو السكور اللي يحصل عليها كل دولة في مؤشر الأمن الغذائي. طبعا المؤشر عبارة عن 4 أقسام رئيسية اللي هي القدرة على تحمل التكاليف، الوفرة، الجودة والسلامة، وهذه 3 نقاط أو 3 نقاط الأساسية. نلاحظ أن مثلا المملكة العربية السعودية حصلت على درجات مناسبة فيها، المملكة بشكل عام حصلت على 44 مركز 44 من ضمن 113 دولة. الكاتيجوري الأخير اللي هو الناتشرال ريسورسز أو الموارد الطبيعية هي التي أدت إلى حدوث بعض الإشكالات في تقسيم وحصول بعض الدول في منطقة المينا على درجة مناسبة في الأمن الغذائي. إذا دخلنا بشكل موسع أكثر نلاحظ تأثير القطاع الموارد الطبيعية ومنها المياه. يلاحظ تأثير المياه بشكل كبير وواضح على تأثير الدرجات، منها مثلا الجفاف، الفلودينج اللي هي السيول أو الفيضانات، كمية المياه، نوعية المياه المتوفرة، الزراعية في مناطقنا أيضا تعتبر من الكميات أو لا بالكمية ولا حتى بالكواليتي، إنه نوعا ما تعتبر أقل من الجودة المناسبة. أيضا عندنا إشكالية في توفرة المياه السطحية من أنهار أو بحار ومياه عذبة سطحية. حتى درجة الحرارة المرتفعة وارتفاع درجة الحرارة تؤدي بشكل كبير ومباشر لاستهلاك النباتات لكميات أكبر من المياه، مما يضغط حتى على مؤشر الغذاء العالمي. طبعا دول المنطقة تعاني بشكل كبير جدا من استيراد الغذاء من خارج المنطقة. هنا استعراض أيضا مرة أخرى المملكة العربية السعودية، وهي كمثال يعني ربما يطابق الكثير من دول المنطقة في بعض أهم المحاصيل الاستراتيجية التي يتم استيرادها من خارج المملكة. نلاحظ مثلا الأرز يعتبر من المحاصيل الشرهة جدا للمياه، ولكنه تعتمد المملكة وبعض الدول أو معظم دول منطقة الميناء على الاستيراد من خارج هذه الدول. عندنا الذرة وعندنا أيضا الشعير، وهي من المنتجات التي تعتبر مهمة جدا للإنتاج الحيواني وتعليف سواء القطعان الماشية أو الدواجن. وبالنسبة للشعير يزرع في مناطقنا بشكل موسع من دولة إلى أخرى، ويستهلك قرابة 7000 إلى 7500 متر مكعب للهكتار الواحد من المياه لإنتاج الشعير. لكن بالنسبة للذرة بأشكالها المختلفة تتراوح من 24 إلى 15,000 متر مكعب للهكتار، وهي تعتبر أيضا من المحاصيل ذات الاستهلاك العالي للمياه. القمح هو سيد الغذاء العالمي ومؤشر أساسي ورئيسي للغذاء في العالم. يعاني القمح منذ فترة طويلة من تدخلات ومشاكل كبيرة جدا، بدءا بمشكلة كوفيد-19 قبل سنتين إلى حدوث الكثير من التغير في الأسعار، ثم بعد ذلك عندنا إشكالية أيضا الآن بالحرب الأوكرانية الروسية اللي أدت أيضا إلى حدوث الكثير من القلق في السوق العالمي للقمح والسوق الغذائي بشكل عام. وتعاني منطقة الميناء بشكل كبير من اعتمادها بشكل كبير جدا الاستيراد من روسيا ومن أوكرانيا، وهم أكبر موردين لسلعة القمح في العالم. الاستهلاك 7300 متر مكعب للهكتار بالنسبة للقمح. تتميز المنطقة الميناء بوفرة إنتاج التمور، وهي تعتبر سلعة أساسية ومنتج غذائي مهم جدا للمواطنين. طبعا هذه كمقدمة لأهمية الإنتاج النباتات الاستراتيجية أو المحاصيل الاستراتيجية في دول المنطقة. المنطقة تعاني من شح كبير جدا للمياه، 8 من ضمن أكثر 10 دول معرضة للعطش أو الضغط على موارد المياه هي موجودة في منطقتنا منطقة الميناء، وبالذات في المنطقة العربية من ضمنها الدول الخليج العربي. المياه العذبة تعاني في المنطقة بشكل كبير جدا من استنزاف كبير جدا. أنا أضرب مثال الآن المملكة العربية السعودية، عام 2016 كان استهلاك المياه المملكة للقطاع الزراعي 21 مليار متر مكعب. حوالي 90% من هذه المياه عبارة عن مياه جوفية غير متجددة. طبعا الوضع كان خطير جدا، حدث الكثير من التحسن خلال الفترة الماضية 5 سنوات الماضية. الخطة نصل في عام 2030 إلى 11 مليار بتخفيض أكثر من 45% من استهلاك المياه بشكل عام، ومن استهلاك أيضا المياه المتجددة نرفع نسبتها إلى حوالي 6.6 مليار متر مكعب. تحدي كبير جدا، لكن أعتقد أنه سيؤثر بشكل كبير وواضح على قدرة المملكة العربية السعودية وقدرة باقي الدول على تحسين مؤشرها وفي المؤشر العالمي للغذاء وتحسين أو توفير الغذاء لمواطنيها. لكن مع التقنيات الزراعية اللي من ضمنها الزراعة المحمية أو زراعة الكنترول انفايرمنت أو الزراعة العمودية، هل سيمكن أن نعالج هذه المشكلة؟ أنا أعتقد نعم، وسنترك الفرصة للزملاء في المحاضرات القادمة لشرح هذه النقطة بشكل أكبر. القطاع الزراعي في المملكة وفي جميع دول العالم هو أكبر قطاع مستهلك للمياه كما هو معروف، بنسبة تتفاوت من 70 إلى 90% على حسب الدول. عندنا إشكالية كبيرة جدا في انخفاض استهلاك أو في انخفاض كفاءة استخدام المياه في القطاع الزراعي أيضا. ما هي أكبر التحديات للأمن الغذائي العالمي؟ احنا نتكلم بشكل عام عن الارتفاع في الاستهلاك الناتج عن زيادة عدد السكان في العالم وفي مناطق الميناء بالذات. عندنا اعتماد كامل في مناطقنا على الاستيراد من خارج الدول، عندنا إمكانيات ضعيفة جدا للمياه وموارد مياه شحيحة جدا، عندنا انخفاض كبير جدا في الإنتاج. هذه كلها مشاكل نعاني منها في المناطق، وهي في مناطقنا وفي دولنا واضحة. وإشكالية أيضا كثيرة ممكن تغيب عن الكثير هي عدم وجود تقاوي مناسبة أو سلالات مناسبة للمناطق الخاصة بدولنا. هل يمكن للتقنية والعلم والتجارب العلمية أن تؤدي إلى رفع وحل معظم هذه المشاكل؟ هذه إجابتها طبعا يكون بتوجه أساسي من هذه الدول إذا كانت ترغب فعلا في مواجهة الإشكالية للجوع القادم اللي سيأتي لا محالة لا سمح الله، يعني وحاصل، لكن مسألة وقت. هل يمكن لهذه الدول أن تستعد مبكرا لمكافحة ومجابهة هذه الإشكاليات في توفير الغذاء لمواطنيها؟ أمثلة سريعة لعدم الاهتمام بالتقنية للزراعات الأساسية اللي هي نتكلم عن المحاصيل الاستراتيجية مثل القمح وغيره. الأشكالية الرئيسية هي العائد المادي. نلاحظ تركيز كبير جدا على الزراعات الخضار وعلى بعض الفواكه مثل الفراولة اللي يكون مردودها الاقتصادي عالي، في مقابل إهمال التركيز على المحاصيل الاستراتيجية التي تعني وتهم الدول في سد حاجة مواطنيها من الجوع. طبعا الأساسيات هي أنه المردود الاقتصادي أعلى، سهولة التعامل، صغر حجم المحاصيل هذه، قدرة المحاصيل على التيرن أوفر بشكل أعلى أو أنه تسترد رأس مالها بشكل أكبر وأسرع، وكذلك محدودية المساحة التي تستهلكها. عندنا بعض الخبراء آرائهم واضحة عندنا، من ضمنها مثلا أنه لو استخدمنا تقنية الإضاءة الصناعية لإنتاج القمح فإن سعر الرغيف سيرتفع إلى حوالي حدود 20 أو 23 دولار عند احتساب الطاقة الكهربائية 10 سنت لكل كيلو. لكن هل هذا نهاية التقنية بالنسبة لاستخدام الإضاءة الصناعية؟ طبعا الإجابة أنا بتركها للدكتور هاي، لأنه هو سيتحدث بشكل يعني موسع عن هذه المشاريع. هنا مثلا الأبحاث أثبتت أنه هناك إمكانية كبيرة جدا لتقليل المدة الزمنية لزراعة القمح مثلا إلى حوالي 50%. عندنا إمكانية أيضا أن ننتج أكثر من 3 إلى 4 محاصيل في السنة الواحدة عن طريق استخدام الزراعة العمودية، لكن إلى الآن لم يتم عمل المشاريع هذه على سكيل أكبر أو على نطاق واسع ونطاق تجاري، بحيث أنه يمكن أن يكون فعلا مساعد للدول في رفع إمكانياتها وقدراتها في الأمن الغذائي. من أهم النقاط اللي ذكرناها قبل قليل هي عدم وجود varieties أو عدم وجود سلالات محلية يمكن إنتاجها تقاوم اللي هي التقاوي تكون مناسبة للبيئات المحلية في المنطقة. أحد الأهم النقاط للزراعة العمودية هي إمكانية عمل البريدنج أو عمل التربية للسلالات المحلية بشكل متسارع اللي يسمونه accelerating breeding، ويصل إلى 6 أضعاف وبعض المرات إلى 7 أضعاف في السنة الواحدة من الطريقة الاعتيادية. فيمكن الحصول على أكثر من جنريشن أو أكثر من جيل في خلال سنة واحدة عن طريق استخدام تقنيات الإضاءة العمودية. السؤال العام اللي يعني بعد كل هذا الكلام، بعد هذا الكلام عن التحديات اللي تواجه مناطقنا من نقص في المياه، من ضعف في الإنتاج، من زيادة في الاستهلاك، من اللهم صل على محمد تراجع في التقييم أو المستوى في الأمن الغذائي العالمي، هل يمكن الفيرتيكال فارمينج أو الزراعة العمودية أو التقنية الزراعية أو الزراعة المتحكم بها، هل يمكنها أن تحل هذه الإشكاليات؟ هذا أيضا إن شاء الله بإذن الله سيتم مناقشته مع الشباب إن شاء الله في العروض القادمة. أنا أشكركم وأشكر الزملاء على إتاحة هذه الفرصة لإلقاء هذه الكلمة، وأتمنى إن شاء الله أن تكون لقاء متوالي بإذن الله. شكرا جزيلا للجميع. شكرا
جزيلا دكتور عبد الله، وحقيقة يعني سلطت الضوء على نقاط مهمة أبرزها موضوع شح المياه ودور مفهوم الكنترولد انفايرمنت اجريكلتشر في تحقيق الامن الغذائي او المساهمه في تحقيق الامن الغذائي في ظل الظروف الجافه والتغيرات المناخيه. شكرا جزيلا. And now I'm really pleased to introduce Dr. Hail Rayhan. And Dr. Hail Rayhan, in fact, has been has been supporting us to organize this event. Without his support, I would say we could not have this event. Thank you so much, Dr. Hale, for your support all the way along. Dr. Hale Rayhan is a senior research fellow at the University of Plymouth, and he's head of plant research and development at Phyton Life Science Company at the UK. Dr. Rayhan is a fellow at the Advanced Higher Education Academy in the UK. His skills and scientific achievements have been recognized at an international level, as he has been awarded a visiting professor status at the University of Jeddah, and he acted as a consultant professor at King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. He is a topic editor at Plants Journal, Impact Factor About 4. Dr. Rayhan has published over 40 papers in international peer-reviewed journals, and he has delivered talks and papers in over 30 national and international conferences. Dr. Rayhan, floor is yours. تفضل.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Dr. Muayyad. It's such a great pleasure to be with you today. I'm just wondering if you can see the slide from my side.
No.
Sorry,
No.
I think, yeah. What about now?
Yes. But can you make it like full screen? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it full screen on your side at the moment?
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Hale.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Apologies about this technical issue. It's such a great pleasure to be with you today, and I would like to provide an overview about the concept of control environment agriculture, the current status, and the future trends. As my colleague mentioned earlier, we do have an issue regarding the significant increase in population, and we've got four shortages arising from various factors. I would like to highlight some of them in this talk. The first one is the extreme climate and sudden natural disaster, and I believe we all remember what happened when we had the pandemic of coronavirus and how it impacted the food supply chain and food security around the world. We also, I found it quite interesting that young people don't tend to enjoy working as a farmer, and we will have a big problem with that, because if you look at this figure here, by 2050, 70% of population are expected to be in the urban, to be urban population, and only 30% of the population are expected to live in or to work in the agricultural sector. And this will cause big issue related to food security and food supply, really. So we do need to find a way to get those people interested in the sector of agriculture. Regional war and conflicts, and I think we are all aware about the issue related to food security now and what's happening as a consequence of the war between Russia and Ukraine, as they produce around 30% of world need of wheat. The war in Ukraine and the wheat price, jumped to the roof in the Middle East and African countries. So this will cause big issue, and countries do need to think about food security and their source of food. We already mentioned the increase in the population. The other, really important point to mention is the unregulated industrial growth, the use of fertilizer. All those issues, led to increased level of environmental pollution related disease as well, and abnormal climate change at a global scale. The next slide, please. So basically, we do need to look for ecological, clean and safe, sustainable, energy efficient food production system. And in this talk, I will focus on what we call plant factory with artificial light, because controlled environment agriculture, can be divided in various sections. One of them, semi-controlled environment in greenhouses. And I believe my colleague will cover this in the later talk. So in my talk, I will focus on the plant factory with artificial light, or what we call completely controlled environment agricultural systems. Those systems, it is The advantage, there's great advantages, which I'm going to cover in a minute. But basically, we minimize the waste. We make sure that resources are used at really high efficiency. We maximize the yield, and we focus on the quality of a product as well. So this system, this technology will help us to produce healthy, tasty, safe, and enjoyable food. But how? Next slide, please. So basically, before we go into details, we need to know what a plant factory with artificial lighting mean, or what's the completely controlled environment agriculture system means. In fact, the title gave an explanation of the concept. It's growing a plant under completely controlled environment conditions. One of the main aspects of it is using artificial light as a sole source of energy instead of using the sun power or the sunlight. And for these purposes, we use advanced LED lighting system. In fact, without the invention of LED lighting system, this technology would have not developed. Can you hear me well, my colleagues? Because I'm getting one of the comment microphone is not working well. Is it clear that my voice?
It's clear, Dr. Hill.
Okay, sorry.
From our side, at least.
Okay. So the plant factory, as I mentioned, is a growing plant under completely controlled environmental conditions. So sometimes we do need to supply the system with CO2, and nutrition are provided to plant through nutritional solutions. So basically, we use hydroponic system to grow plant in this system and in this, with this technology. So basically. Colleagues, there's some question coming up, so I hope you can sort this technical issue. So basically, we use hydroponic system, to grow plant under completely controlled environmental condition. And as you know, hydroponic, there are various types of hydroponic like NFT, ebb and flow, aeroponic, and all those sort of things. All the environmental conditions are completely controlled: temperature, humidity, light, photo period, light intensity. This system can be built anywhere really, but ideally, this need to be provided with thermally well-insulated walls. And most likely we use vertical farming system in this setting. However, having said that, the completely controlled environmental agriculture system is not limited with vertical farming, because recently other plant species, bigger plant species, start being grown under in plant factory or under this type of agricultural system. For example, like cannabis now, there's big setting where they grow cannabis for medicinal purposes under completely controlled environmental condition. And in this case, we can't use vertical settings. So either we use one layer or two layers. Next slide, please. So why this technology? Why is it important? What's the advantages? So there's great advantages of using this technology, really. One of them, it can be built anywhere, it can be placed anywhere, regardless the external environmental conditions. So talking about Saudi Arabia, where desert, form the most area of Saudi Arabia, this system can be placed anywhere, regardless either fertile soil, regardless the external environment, because we control the environmental conditions. It's not affected by the soil fertility because we use hydroponic system to grow plant. The quality of a product, can be controlled through manipulating the environmental conditions. So we ensure the production of really high quality of a product, and the taste. The shelf life of a product is longer in comparison with a plant grown in greenhouses or in open field, because the bacterial load on those plants is significantly lower in comparison with those grown in greenhouses or in open land. And I would like to focus on the point related to energy, because always, we've been the drawback of this technology, or one of the many challenges, that it requires energy. And we provide energy, we provide light using artificial lighting system instead of using sunshine, and this for energy. So I would like to highlight a couple of points here. Next slide, please. So basically, when we talk about energy and the consumption of energy in controlled environment agriculture, there is two elements to consider here. We've got the energy consumption and we've got the water consumption. In the Middle East, in the MENA region, Water is big problem, as Dr. Abdullah mentioned, and a lot of agriculture setting depends on underground water. So we don't need just to think about the water consumption, we need to think about the energy spent to get access to the water. And here I would like to give a real life example, really. I'm originally from Syria. I used to be a lecturer at the University of Damascus. And I came from a farming family. So I wanted to give you an example about our farm in Syria. And by the way, the water situation in Syria is much better in comparison with Jordan and the other MENA region. We use underground water, so we need to get access to underground water in order to feed the plants. And the availability of this water is really limited. And you need to be very lucky to get to dig your well where there's chance to get this water. So basically, this is the farm. All this area, wherever you dig a well to get underground water, there's no water. So we had to dig a well in this area here. I don't think my mouse will show because. So basically, the well, is 500 meters away from the farm. The depth of the well is 180 meters. We extract underground water. The pump we use, it's 5.5 horsepower pump. So it consumes around 4,000 watts per hour to extract 5 cubic meters of water. This is just the water, olive trees in the field where the water use efficiency is less than 50%. So imagine if we are growing, leafy greens, for example, vegetable, lettuce, basil, lemon balm, or this sort of thing where you need to water them every 3 days. The amount of energy you need to spend, on water will be much higher than the amount of energy you would require for a plant factory system. Now, this is where the plant factory system would play essential role because the water use efficiency in vertical farming or in a plant factory is significantly high. So it's over 95%, specifically if we are using closed hydroponic system. You don't lose any water apart from the water that absorbed by the plant, because actually you feed the plant, the water will come back to the dosing system. It gets dosed with elements and nutrition. You feed it, even the water that the plant uses through transpiration get fixed again through the dehumidification system. So this water energy nexus, you need to think about it. So it's not fair, I think, to judge the technology on the consumption of energy, that it requires a lot of energy. We need to see the full picture. The other point which I would like to make here, that, would this technology play a role in food security? I think it would play an essential role. Specifically, if we consider the climate change in the Middle East, the situation with the climate change. You see all this picture here, you see it brown because it's a ground. All this area here that you can see in the images, if you go back 30, 40 years ago, all this, area used to be planted by grapes and fig. In fact, the name of my town in Syria is Atawani, which means in English, fig or a fig town. So we used to produce tons and tons of grape and fig. But now all of this gone because of the low level of rainfall. In fact, this year we did not get even, 100 milliliter of rain. In the past, when it used to snow, they used to remove the snow from the roof, it closed the road and people visit each other walking between houses from the roofs. This is not existed anymore. So we've got the problem, we've got limited source of water. Now, when we talk about this technology, and when we think about the strategic crops like wheat, rice, and this sort of thing, at this stage, it might not be possible to use this technology to grow these strategic crops. However, this would release the pressure from the water used by growing the other plant species that require, like pharmaceutical plants, essential oil plants, leafy greens, and leave the water available, to use with those strategic crops. So basically, we can clear more area from the fertile land, free more area from this fertile soil to grow the strategic crop, free more water, and we focus our attention, whatever can be grown using vertical farming system, we grow it within vertical farming setting. We place it where the soil is not suitable for agriculture. The water use efficiency is extremely high, and we free the land and the water sources to focus on strategic crops. This is number one. Number two, even with the strategic crops, like Dr. Abdullah has just mentioned with wheat, Now we need to think, to start thinking about the breeding for vertical farming and for controlled environment agriculture. In the UK, the wheat spent in the field like 9 months. You can grow one growth cycle. In Egypt, wheat, you can place 2 growth cycle of wheat. Now with vertical farming, with this speed breeding technology, completing the growth cycle within a couple of months, actually we are nearly there. So more research, more breeding, this technology can become a valuable option to grow strategic crops as well. The other point, if we take Egypt as an example, Egypt, they grow so much, high level of essential oil crops. Actually, high level of Egypt income, national income, come from the export of essential oils. However, Egypt at the same time imports big amount of wheat. This system could be ideal to grow essential oil crops and those pharmaceutical plant species. It even increased the quality of a product. So focusing, transferring, this growing the plant, essential oil, pharmaceutical plants in this system, and free the land and the limited availability of water to grow wheat would really help to ensure or to increase the food security of Egypt. This is a couple of examples. So I think, just to simply, this technology would play an essential role in increasing the food security and to be a part of the solution. It will never be the whole solution, but I think it can play an essential role, and it can be a part of solution to ensure food security and ensure a good food supply chain for local population. Next slide, please. Now, the question that can be raised here, and the question that I was asked by Princess Anne a few weeks ago. We all know that this system has been used to produce fodder for animals in the last 20, 30 years. Why is it just now we are thinking about using it to produce vegetable and grow other type of crops and other type of plant species? To answer this question, we really need to go through the history of developing this technology. Next slide, please. So different references, refer about the development of a plant factory or controlled environment agriculture system in different way. However, I would like to highlight the fact that there has been 3 booms in this technology in 1980, 1990s, and after 2010. To have a closer look about what happened at those stages, we need to look at the history of the lighting system. Next slide, please. So in 1960s, 1970s, there was the introduction of high-pressure sodium lamps, and it was started being used in greenhouses as supplementary lighting system. After that, we have the fluorescent lights in the 1990s. And if you have one of those old growth cabinet in your labs, you'll find the fluorescent tubes in your growth cabinets. And at this stage, the vertical farming with barley and to produce fodder to animals start becoming something interesting. And there's no issue with that, because actually when you place fodder, you germinate your barley or other crops for a week or 10 days. They grow 10, 15, 20 centimeters, and after that you take them to feed your animals. However, if you would like to place other type of crops like parsley, like basil, lemon balm, you need to keep them for 6-7 weeks. You need to think about the energy consumption, and fluorescent tubes won't help with that, because the light intensity that it produces is not high and the electrical consumption is quite high. Now, if we look after 2010, it was the invention and the development and the use, actually the commercialization of LED lighting system. And this was the key factor, the key moment, the game changer in terms of vertical farming and in terms of the controlled environment agriculture systems, because it does not produce much heat. So it can be placed much closer to the plant. You can go vertically. The efficiency, the efficacy of this lighting system is really high. And even more importantly, you can manage the spectrum. You can manage the color of the light in order to match the absorbance of a plant. So in fact, it would induce the growth, increase the yield, increase the production, and a huge amount of research is being conducted in this area. In fact, our research group at the University of Plymouth, led by Professor McFuller, all our work in the last 3-4 years, actually maybe longer than that, has focused on this. And as Professor Mc showed, just shifting, optimizing this lighting system has a huge impact on the growth of a plant within controlled environment agriculture system. Now we are in 2020. and above we have huge commercial setting where they use vertical farming, where they use commercially control environment system for commercial production of crops. It's working really well, and there's huge movement and focus on automation, on big data and intelligent learning, and I think this technology is really picking up at the moment. Next slide, please. So basically, it's all about energy, really. So we've got a couple of things, energy and labor. So if we can reduce the consumption of energy, you know, that will be fantastic for control environment system. And we have the solution in the Middle East, in the MENA region. So to ensure a renewable source of energy would make this system optimal for food production in the Middle East and MENA region. Next slide. So just to highlight, you know, the fact about, you know, the solar system and the source of renewable energy. If you look at the cost of solar panel, it decreased from $76 per watt in 1977. In 2015, it was only 30 cents per watt. In fact, I just installed the solar system to my family in Syria, and the watt costed me less than 24 cents. You know, the cost of watt was less than 24 cents. So the cost, you know, of solar energy, of solar panel, of photovoltaic is going really, it's decreasing significantly. It's really cheap now, and this will ensure a clean source of energy that would really help the technology of vertical farming to be used widely in the Middle East. The other point which I would like to mention, the cost of battery system. If you look at the graph on the right hand side, if you look the significant decrease in the cost of battery system. But why I'm mentioning the cost of battery system? Because basically when you go vertically, you don't worry about the impact of low temperature, because lighting, although LED lighting system don't produce much heat, but it will produce some heat to keep the system warm. In fact, you need to think about air conditioning, which consume even more temperature, you know, energy than the lighting itself. So if you've got good battery system, you fix solar energy through the day, you store it in battery system, you feed your system, you switch the light on through the night, you significantly decrease the cost of air conditioning. And to be honest with you, if you compare with the amount of energy required to cool a greenhouse in Saudi Arabia, I think it will be much easier to cool plant factory system than cooling a greenhouse when the outside temperature is about 60 degrees. Next slide, please. Coming back to the LED lighting system, and this is why this system become commercially valuable. Look about the efficacy and efficiency of LED lighting system. Now with the current status, we can produce about 3 micromole per joule. And we think, you know, very soon we will be able to produce about 5 micromole per joule. And this is really interesting. This is high level of efficiency, high level of efficacy. So we sort of sorted the issue related to the power consumption in vertical farming setting. The other thing, you know, which is quite interesting, I would like to mention the efficacy and efficiency of LED chips depend on the color of the light. So red light, you know, are more efficient in comparison with the blue. So when we say red light is about 700 nanometers. If you compare it with the efficiency of a blue light, about 450 is much higher, you know, red light, you know, is more efficient, but actually it's not a suitable one for the plant. So we need to think about energy, but at the same time, we need to think about what the plant needs to grow and yield. The other point which I would like to make, you know, and the graphs on the left-hand side, the lower one, this from the same reference, actually, they reported the electricity cost of a plant factory system would form about 27% of the running cost of the system. The same reference in 2020, they reported the electrical cost about 21%. And this highlight actually the development of lighting system is decreasing the electrical power within the control environment system. And basically, I think, you know, we are nearly there with this technology. Next slide, please. So what are the type of a plant factory system? There are various types of a plant factory system. It can be start with something really simple, desktop little unit where you can grow your microgreen or your herb, your parsley, your basil. I used to have one in my desk where I used to play mint. So I take a couple of leaves, put it on my tea. It can be like a kitchen unit, cafe unit. And this becomes quite interesting because usually I think about, for example, let me give an example of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia in the summer, the external temperature is extremely high. maybe air conditioning, is running 24 hours. And this really, you are circulating the same air inside the house. The level of CO2 goes up, level of oxygen down. And even more important, the humidity, the relative humidity inside houses would go really down because of the air conditioning. So if you have like unit like this in your house, number one, it adds some sort of humidity to the environment because of transpiration. It will purify the environment inside the house. It will relatively, somehow reduce the need of air conditioning. And, having something green in the house, I think it will have some psychological impact, which is very interesting. Next slide, please. Again, this technology, what we call microplant factory system, it can be included and integrated into educational program. You can place, add something about it with, like units that can be placed at home, or integrate this technology in educational curriculum for schools. It can be placed in shopping mall, restaurants, workplace, hospitals, etc., etc. And this photo was taken from an event. We call it Agri-Tech Moonwood. And it was very interesting when we had this small unit. And as you can see, growing some basil, and the chance to talk to people, they can see it. So they feel a sense of technology. They understand the concept behind it, and they can play with it themselves. Next slide, please. But again, this technology can be scaled up. And I'm giving a few examples here. For example, June's Food. This is a British company, and I'm very glad that my colleague Paul Channeler, who was one of the founders of this company, is joining us, and he will be delivering a talk. I'm sure he will be happy to provide more details about it later on today. But this, at the time it was established, it used to be one of the biggest vertical farming setting in Europe, produced tons and thousands of plants every year. Next slide, please. Now, this company was sold to another commercial setting called Okado, and they are building the biggest vertical farming setting in the world now in the UK. And when you think about it, a vertical farming system was sold to a commercial company, and this commercial company that produce food and sell it decide to build much bigger one. This will give you clear indication that actually, this is making money and this system is working. And if you think about the energy cost in the UK and compare it with the energy cost in the Middle East, I think it's at least 10 times higher, at least 10 times higher than, when you compare it. Another example is AeroPharma from the USA. This company has been valued for over $1.2 billion. They are building a farm in Dubai for $100 million at the moment. Another example from Netherlands. Next slide, please. Infarm in Netherlands, this company has been valued for more than $1 billion, and their plan is to build another setting in Qatar in 2023. So basically, this technology has been developed in the West and now is picking up in the Middle East and in the MENA region. However, it's much better way to integrate the local community, the local people, the local educational institution in developing this technology, because it needs to be built to suit the local environment and the local requirements. Next slide, please. So what are the future trends of this technology? I think there are three main parts of the technology. There's the part related to plant biology, where we optimize, for example, the LED lighting system that can promote the growth, increase yield, etc., etc. There's the automation and sensing technology. This plays an essential role, because when you say completely control environment agriculture system, you need the system to control this. And I'm sure my colleague in NCAX will provide some details about these systems later on this afternoon. And the third important part, the nutritional value of a product, because I think we all feel sometimes you go to the shop, you buy some product, some lettuce or even a cherry or fruit, whatever, you test it and it tastes like water. Because basically a lot of time this might be grown hydroponic, a greenhouse, it does not get enough energy, so there's no enough stress. So the quality of a product is really poor. And within this system, because we control the environmental condition, we can control the quality. So the nutritional value of a product. And when we talk about pharmaceutical industry, this technology play an essential role. I will give more details about this in a minute. Next slide, please. So talking about automation and sensing technology. So this is just very brief example about what the sensing technology look like nowadays, actually. writing highlighted in blue refer to type of sensor that can be included, and actually much more sensor can be included but this is just a brief example. So you can add sensor to control humidity, temperature, pH, nutritional level, light intensity, photo period, the nutritional flow. All these of sensor can be included, and all those of sensor can be controlled in one central point. There are quite advanced systems out there. They do all the job for you these days, and they are relatively cheap. I'm just mentioning 3 examples here. We've got a company called Debriva, we've got AutoGrow, we've got Caltanova. There's hundreds of this company. And in fact, when you look at those systems, you know, they are quite efficient, really interesting. You look at the feature, they can control all single element, you know, related to the environmental condition. There's a lot of them are, you know, provided by alarm system in case anything goes wrong, you get text message or you get an email, your system has an issue, you go check it. So we are nearly there in terms of sensing. Now there is the other part of sensing technology that are related to the plant directly. And there are a lot of research going on now at the moment. So for example, you place fluoroimaging system that give you an indication about the plant biology, plant status, plant health. There are a lot of research going on there and at the moment, and I think we will have interesting system quite soon in the future. Automation is a big part, and as I mentioned in the last couple of slides, electricity and labor and electricity form about 50% of the running cost. So if we can decrease the electrical consumption, if we can introduce automation to some sort of automation to the system, this will increase the efficacy and efficiency of using this technology. Next slide, please. Excuse me. The other thing which worth mentioning, data. Data is a big thing, you know, in terms of vertical farming and plant factory. And the word plant factory, when you translate it to Arabic, masna' an-nabat, it really gives you the meaning, because actually you can plan your income, you can plan your production, you know how much you will produce, you know how much, when you will produce, you need to plan your market to sell your product. So you've got data coming from your environment system, from your sensor, you know, sensors in the growing setting. And you've got the data coming from the marketplace, you know, how much you need, when you need it, who's going to buy it. All those need to be connected. And specifically, if you have some sort of intelligent learning and sensing technology that can connect to the plant, which give you an indication about the status of a plant, all this data comes to one central unit, and logarithmic relationships, you know, start connecting it together in order to produce your model and to make sure that actually your system is economically valuable. So sensing technology, intelligent learning, big data is the future with this technology. Next slide, please. The final point which I would like to mention about, you know, I think it's been mentioned by Professor McFuller and it's been mentioned by me earlier, is the pharmaceutical industry. The main barrier in front of using a plant for pharmaceutical and medicinal application is the variation you get associated with the plant derived from field. If your plant grown in a dry area with high level of temperature, you don't expect the chemical composition, the concentration of those chemicals to be the same if your plant are derived from wet area with mild condition, even if it's the same plant species. And this makes this technology optimal for the production of pharmaceutical and essential oil plant species in general. Next slide, please. So when you use this system to produce pharmaceutical plants, number one, you exclude the impact of environmental condition because you are fixing environment. Plant grown in this system are pesticide residue, and this is big thing for plants that need to be used for pharmaceutical industry. Clean product. There is no impact of aflatoxin, no radioactive material, no heavy metals. And more importantly, the quality and the concentration of bioactive material can be controlled through through controlling the environmental condition. And you know, when you go, for example, to in the Middle East, you know, the taste of fruit is really very, fruit and vegetable are very tasty. And this is something I really miss in the UK. And the reason behind that, because the environmental condition in the summer, you get hot, dry weather, you get high temperature, you stress the plant actually in order to induce the concentration of secondary metabolites. But in fact, we can do that in vertical farming and in controlled environment setting as well. Next slide, please. So in plant factory, because everything is controlled, basically you can introduce light stress. For example, you introduce UV, you can introduce drought stress at some point, you can introduce salinity stress. However, you need to be clever the way you do it, so you ensure to maximize your yield, and maybe just before harvest, you introduce some sort of a stress, and in this case, you ensure you get the highest quality. So coming back to essential oil and pharmaceutical plant species, if you fix your genetic, you are fixing the environment, you ensure you are getting really high quality of desirable chemical produced from this system. And we all, I think, agree that there is huge movement toward the use of natural products nowadays, and getting away from the chemistry and chemical use because of the side effect associated with chemical medicine and chemical products. Next slide, please. As Dr. Muayyad mentioned, I work as a head of plant research and development in a company in the UK called Phytom Life Science, and Phytom has picked up this idea. So what we do at Phytom, basically, we fix the genetic, we propagate the plant through tissue culture or cutting, and we grow them under completely controlled environmental condition. We treat them with various lighter treatment, and after that, we've got very advanced chemistry kit. We analyze the chemistry of the plant, and it's really interesting. I can't give much details about the stuff we are doing at the moment because the company is not public yet, but just an indication, the stuff we are getting, when you change the environment, huge impact, you get a huge impact on the chemical profile, not just the concentration of various chemical, actually the type of chemical, within those plant get completely changed. And this is fantastic for pharmaceutical industry because this will lead to producing new medicine to unfold, to better understand how those plants have their pharmaceutical and biomedical impacts. And I know in the MENA region, we do depend so much on pharmaceutical herbs. So I think this will form fantastic project to get this herb from the nature, from open field, clone them, grow them under completely controlled environmental condition, and try to unfold the chemical and pharmaceutical properties of those plant species. Next slide, please. The other point, this system could be very suitable to grow genetically modified plants, GMO, genetically modified organisms, because we know the regulation related with genetically modified organisms. There's always risk when you grow it in greenhouses on open field that the gene you are modifying get escaped to the nature, or pollen contamination. All this, issue get sorted when you grow those plants under completely controlled environmental condition, because you control your plant. It's in closed setting, so you eliminate all those risks. Next slide, please. But what are the challenges for the Middle East and for the MENA region? Why is it challenging, to make use of this technology at this stage? There's so many challenges actually, but I just would like to highlight 2 or 3 of them. Number one, the capital cost of you get this young generation that are switch on in terms of, they've got their idea and everything. And this does not just apply on vertical farming. Actually, it's applied in all sort of science, really. They don't get the initial, they require support from government, from research institutions, so they can develop their idea and then they can take their project for that. And when we talk about vertical farming and the control environment condition, the initial cost is high. So young people, young researchers are not able to afford, taking this technology and working on it. So more support is needed, to get this technology to pick up in at local population and in the MENA region. Next slide, please. The other thing, as I mentioned in a few slides ago, there's a 3 part of the story. You've got the plant biology, you've got the automation and sensing technology, and you've got the nutritional value of a plant and the products. You need all those people. You need experts in plant biology who understand the plant. You need people, engineers, electronics. You need people who understand chemistry of a plant. So creating the platform so all those people can come together, working together to develop this technology, this is other challenge. At university, it's unlikely to be able to get, people from these 3 main sectors, get them together to work on this technology. So creating the platform for those people who are interested, in this technology to come together and develop it will be very, very interesting and very essential. And this is where I've been discussing with Dr. Muayyad, maybe, and Dr. Abdullah from CACS. we need to work on creating the platform. So local expertise work with expertise from the West and from the UK. So we work together to develop this technology for MENA region. Next slide, please. The other challenge is, MENA region, Gulf state depend 100%, not 100%. So there is a lot of dependent in imported technology. Now, this is nothing wrong with that, but it's much better to develop this technology in collaboration with the university and local research institution, because we do need to understand the requirement, the environment requirement, the requirement of local setting. And I can give you a quick example of that. Now, if you would like to build vertical farming setting in London, it's desirable to go as much high as possible, 16, 17, 20 shelf, to go vertically, because the land cost is extremely high. But if you are building a system, for example, in Saudi Arabia, there is no need to go 17, 18, 20 shelves. It's much better to go lower, to go 4 or 5, because the cost of the land, just get out of the city, it's desert. So the cost of the land won't be as much high as when you compare it with London, for example. However, adding more shelf than 5 will add complication to the system, because you need to ensure the uniformity of air, the uniformity of temperature, the humidity, the nutritional system, the maintenance, the planting, the harvest. It adds complication. We don't need these complications. So this is just one example. So working with local research center or local university, local population, and the transfer, that will be very helpful to efficiently transfer the technology from the West. So I think, the best way to go forward is for various institution and research center and commercial company to work together with local population to deliver this technology, rather than depending 100% on off-shelf product and importing and on imported technology as well. Next slide. Here are some references. I think, I hope you find it useful. And I'm happy to take, next slide, please. I'm happy to take any question if there's any. And if there's no time to discuss all the question, this is the, in the last slide, my email address and my colleague email address. We would be very happy to receive email, discuss ideas, and we would be more than happy to work with whoever interested in this technology to think about the project, to work together to develop it and to transfer what we've got and what we learned in the West to local population and local research institution and universities in the MENA region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. It is very interesting journey through controlled environment agriculture. You've addressed all aspects. In fact, you've addressed the issue of water, the issue of energy, the issue of land footprint. You've talked about challenges. So thank you so much. I guess we have like 5 minutes for a couple of questions. So if somebody, we're going to start from the people here who are attending in person. So Omar, please, if you don't mind.
Dr. Hail. So the question is, so looking at the technology and mentioning some of the challenges that you've mentioned, from complexity, upscaling, and other stuff. So what about the maintenance cost? Is it really high? The flexibility of the technology for upgrading, is it simple? If you want to change the species, play with the parameters, also any of the emergency responses, is it easy? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's quite interesting, actually. So let me start by the last point, responding to emergency situations. So within the system, with vertical farming, usually you use hydroponic system. And with hydroponic system, if there is any issue, it will impact the plant quite quickly. So assume your pump breaks down, this will kill your plant within 24 hours. However, having said that, with advanced control system, which is available at relatively cheaper price, they are fitted with alarm system. So assume you've got temperature that goes up more than 30 degrees. The alarm system will give you a text message, will give you an email, and actually it will shut the system down. So the light will be off, so reduce the heat load, so you can you can sort out the problem. So this is where the control system plays an essential role, because actually it protects you from sudden problem. The other point, which is very interesting to mention when you say change crops. Now, you need to think about what type of crops you would like to plant from the beginning, because there will be flexibility to change crop between growing, for example, various crops within the setting you've got. But you can't make huge change. For example, if you are using NFT system, nutrient film technique, you can use it for lettuce, for basil, for several plant species. But if you would like to shift to growing potato, for example, this would require completely different hydroponic system. You see what I mean? So thinking about it, designing the system at the initial stage will be very important, because you need to design the system in order to fit your requirement, in order to achieve what you are looking for. And coming back, this is different from buying off-shelf system. Buying off-shelf system, you go with the system, it's fitted to do that, that's it. But if you think about your project, set up your objective, what you would like to grow, how much you will, sell it for, what you would like to use it for, you come back from that side and you think, okay, this is what I would like, this is what I would like to set my system to do. And this is very important with when you talk about controlled environment agriculture system, because the capital cost is high. So it's better to get it right from the beginning rather than doing it and having to change stuff in it afterwards. I hope I addressed your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Does anybody have a question here? Well, I have two questions, if you don't mind. One question to Professor McFuller. I don't know if he's still with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, you're with us. Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering if there's a collaboration at UK level across all universities regarding controlled environment agriculture. I've heard that there's been some research projects in other universities. Do you have can you please tell us about the horizontal collaboration at UK level?
Okay, so there is academic collaboration between different institutions, but also they're competitive between each other to get research grants and things. There is the UK users group, controlled environment users group, which is mostly technical people who run controlled environments, which are used for research purposes, but they're also networked in with the businesses and the growing interest in vertical farms. And then there is the Vertical Farming Society, I think it's called, or association, which is actually run out of Holland. And lots of people belong to that, and they have an annual or every 2-year conference to look at vertical farming developments. And then there is one organization which is partly sponsored by the government called CHAP, which has under its one of its important areas of responsibility is to coordinate controlled environment agricultural developments. We're working closely with them, and they work with all of the various different universities and interested bodies in the UK. So it is not a single coordinated group within the UK, and that's pretty much the way it's always been, and will always be as well. The researchers talk to each other, but they also realize there are quite important commercial gains to be had from some of the technologies and the transfer of those technologies. So many of them are working individually with their own particular partners on this. And it's already at a relatively advanced stage, as Heil has said, in terms of transferring of that technology into industry. As we said, and we'll hear in a minute, there are some big companies already investing heavily into controlled environment agricultural systems, and then that becomes commercial secrets because they have competitive advantages associated with what they've produced, how they're producing it, how they've refined it, which is how they maintain their market security. So it's getting quite advanced quickly in the UK, but there is still quite a lot of basic plant science still to be done to understand exactly the interactions with all of those parameters, as Heil has talked about. So things will always continually improve as time goes on, and you will get more and more refinements as time goes on. But because of the huge capital cost that's involved in building a plant factory system, if you're going to go for a big one, as Heil says, you have to jump into that market at some point if you're commercially going to do this, and you have to decide on what system you're going to have, because most of your capital cost is actually in securing the building and then securing the hydroponic racking system that you're going to use. And this is quite interesting. I think we'll hear a little bit more when we hear from the next couple of speakers a bit more about this. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really happy that most of the research outputs of the controlled environment agriculture are being like commercialized and are being like adopted at commercial level. Thank you so much. The last question, I'm going to ask this question in Arabic to Dr. Abdullah Rajhi. دكتور عبد الله، إلى أي مدى الحكومة السعودية ووزارة الزراعة والمياه يعني تنظر إلى مفهوم الزراعة المتحكم بها أو الزراعة العمودية كمفهوم يعني خلينا نحكي promising، كمفهوم ممكن يكون له دور في تحقيق الأمن الغذائي في المملكة العربية السعودية وفي المينا كانتريز بشكل عام؟
السلام عليكم.
السلام ورحمة الله.
طبعا أنا ما أستطيع أني أتحدث باسم الوزارة، لست عضوا في الوزارة، لكن من واقع المتابعة كمهتم بالموضوع، الوزارة عقدت أو حسب علمي مؤتمرين عالميين يتحدثان عن موضوع الزراعة العمودية، وكان في المؤتمرين تم دعوة مجموعة من الخبراء، بالذات من الخبراء المهتمين بتطبيقات الزراعة المحاصيل الاستراتيجية في النظام الزراعة العمودية أو النظام الزراعة المتحكم بها، وكان على رأس هذه المحاصيل القمح. فكان فيه أكثر من شخص مهتم بزراعة القمح. كان في أيضا أحد الباحثين الكبار من اليابان يحاول زراعة أو عمل حقيقة أكثر من تجربة وعمل لزراعة الأرز بالزراعة العمودية. لكن الوزارة طبعا مهتمة حسب ما ألاحظ أنا حتى إعلاميا بتطبيقات الزراعة العمودية وتطبيقات الزراعة المتحكم بها، وتنظر إلى الأمام بشكل كبير وجدي التعاون مع بعض الجامعات في المملكة العربية السعودية والجهات البحثية من ضمنها المدينة لعمل بعض الإجراءات والأبحاث في هذا المجال. إذا كان هذه الإجابة إن شاء الله كافية.
تمام، شكرا جزيلا دكتور عبد الله، شكرا جزيلا. By the way, just to follow up on Dr. Hale's speech, we're going to establish and test a small controlled environment system here at RSS that will be powered by solar panel. So Dr. Hale will support us, inshallah, in setting up this small household system at RSS. This will be in a couple of months, inshallah. Well, back to our agenda. I'm really happy to introduce Dr. Paul Challoner. Dr. Paul Challoner is a professionally qualified consultant and managing director of Maybarn Consultancy Company in the UK. His skills include wide-ranging agronomic and technical experience in the UK conventional and organic food crop production industry. Most recently, Paul was the co-founder and chief technology officer of Jones Food Company, the company that we've just seen by Dr. Hale, which developed a groundbreaking high-care fresh food vertical crop production facility utilizing the latest innovations in intensive hydroponics and current LED lighting and cropping system automation. Paul also has specific expertise in the management of glass house building and replacement projects, including due diligence services, nutrient recirculation, and solution treatment systems in the UK and across Europe. Paul, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just try and share
Shall we share it from our side, Paul? Are you okay?
Just let me try one more thing.
Yeah, that's fine. It's in the way. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
All good.
Yes, brilliant. You please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the slight delay. I hope everybody is good this morning. I'd just like to talk to you about the potential of CEA, especially for the Middle East. But in order for me to do that, I think we just need to go backwards slightly and look at what the trends are in terms of glasshouse production and how all of this is developing. I hope that that will be useful for people because we seem to have sped ahead with all the other technologies. So if you'll bear with me, I'd just like to go and talk about the current situation really in terms of glasshouse production and the wider CEA field, if that makes sense. So in terms of where we are at the moment, the current situation is the crop production in terms of glasshouse cultivation is becoming much more intensified. So there's a trend towards taller and wider structures with more available light coming in for the plants. And it really is all about the light. So we're making these structures more sealed as well. And there are now semi-closed and closed versions of glass houses available with air conditioning, and they're all very suitable for hot climates. So the air can be taken in from the outside and either cooled or warmed depending on the requirements of the crop and the stage of the crop before it reaches the plants. And the other large advances obviously are LED lighting, sodium and LED lighting, to extend the growing season, especially in more northern climes. And then we also see the use of buildings and unusual spaces being brought into the agricultural situation now. So one of the techniques that's helping bring light into structures is the use of diffuse glass. And here we see Henk Verbachel from Holland demonstrating on the left-hand side normal glass with a light source going through the normal glass, and that shows a sort of pinpoint as the light travels straight through. Whereas with diffuse glass on the right-hand side, Henk's holding a piece of diffuse glass there with the light source again, and you can see that the light is much more scattered into the environment. So diffuse glass is allowing light to be distributed onto crops to good effect in these new structures. This is just an example of a tomato glasshouse in Holland. This is Red Star at Dinterloord. This is a 10-hectare block in this photograph. The site's probably a lot bigger than that now, but 10 hectares of one variety. So this is Sunstream tomatoes. And you can get a feeling that the glasshouse is very large, the panes are very wide. It's a tall structure to allow the accommodation of the tomato vines, and this crop would be in situ for at least 12 months from planting. So you can see there that they're using sodium lights because they want to help warm the top of the plant as well. LED lights would not be as effective at that, but was surprising that having built that, they went for sodium lights instead of LEDs. And then you see the large tubes under the crop there, and that's the air coming from the outside of the glasshouse, which is either warmed or cooled, as I explained earlier, and then pushed underneath the crop for very even air distribution and temperature regulation. So that's the sort of standard crop that's in Holland at the moment. And to go with that, you need a hydroponic system, usually based on something like an inert substrate like rock wool. And this is the large hydroponic system to manage the water input stored inside, as you can see there. into the crop, and that would be suitable for about 10 hectares. In terms of hydroponic systems, this is, for those who don't know, this is growing plants in the absence of soil. And there are several techniques that can be used, as outlined earlier by Heil and touched on earlier on. So nutrient film technique is probably one of the oldest methods of growing plants in hydroponics. So this is a film of water that's introduced into usually channels, and the plant sits in or on the top of the channel and takes its nutrients and water and oxygen from the thin film of liquid that's pumped around the system. To me, it is the ultimate recirculation system because it already has recirculation built into it of nutrients and water. Aeroponics has really had a rebirth in terms of introduction of hydroponic systems because it's much more useful now in terms of CEA and use in vertical farms. And rock wool, as we mentioned earlier, is the standard substrate really for most long season crops, and by that I mean tomatoes, cucumbers, sweet peppers. Rock wool is made of diabase and is spun into fibers, so it can be made into different thicknesses of slab to allow more water retention or easy drainage depending on the crop. There are other materials that can be used, and they're listed there. One of the interesting ones for me is zeolite, where these materials can hold on to nutrients, and that may be of more use in the future, where we need to be very mindful of fertilizer use and the cost of these fertilizers. So if you have a material that can hold potassium, calcium, magnesium, for example, then it is possible that by adding water with reduced amounts of nutrients in, that the plant can still have access to some of these nutrients. And that may be something worth looking at again in the future. It's kind of had its day a long time back in the 80s and 90s, and then was used for things like golf greens, where it was used as a top dressing for holding on to nutrients for the grass. But now it may have other applications where we need to be very careful about the use of nutrients. In terms of rock wool, this is typical tomato plant establishing in a rock wool slab. So this was taken in Gibraltar, so quite a hot situation there. And you can see that the plant roots have developed very well in the top part of the slab, where they've got access to lots of water. And then what we really need for substrate systems is to develop the root system throughout the substrate, so that we're not getting roots just going straight down to the bottom and taking loose water that might be there. So very good root distribution is essential. And then as touched on earlier on in Heil's presentation, we need to look at utilizing water that has gone through the substrate or has come out of the end of the nutrient film technique system. So dealing with drain water just being an overall term for water that's drained through the system that the crop's growing in. So we need to look at collection, treatment and recirculation of this liquid to fully utilize the scarce water and the high cost nutrients that are there. It's important to have hygiene at the top of the agenda when looking at recirculation. And the liquid that goes through is usually treated with either ultraviolet light or heat treatment. And they all have their different complexities on using these systems. One of the most important is pH and EC control. So that's the pH of the solution after heat treatment, for example, needs to be checked and altered. And also the remaining nutrients in the system. When you're recirculating, it's not straightforward because certain elements are taken out in preference from these solutions as the plants take the nutrients that they require, especially potassium and nitrate, nitrogen. And you will find that on using recirculation systems, these nutrients often go towards depletion and need to be added back in very quickly to prevent deficiency symptoms. And the other side of that is that you can get certain elements and ions building up in the solution that you don't require, especially if you're taking water from a saline source, for example. So sodium chloride, sulfate are all elements and compounds that need to be checked as recirculation system continues. So here's an example of drain water recirculation utilizing an ultraviolet light unit. So the water is being passed through this metal tube and goes around a light source, UV light source inside, and that UV light source is kept clean by wiping the bulb to make sure that ion deposits and other detrimental particles do not contaminate the light source. It's very important to have a clean water source, so filtration is really important before it goes through the UV light source. Why bother with all of this? Well, it's really clear even in the UK that where you're recirculating the solution, and that's shown by the light blue and the orange lines at the bottom, we're making very big savings, especially in our summer period when water use is increased compared to the systems shown above where they're running to waste, so no capture of water after the plants have taken what they need. So recirculation extremely important and should be part of all of the CEA systems from day one. And then talking about lights again, the transition from sodium lights to LEDs in different countries is very apparent now. This is Holland taken from the air, where you can see the orange lights of the sodium lamps versus the newcomer LEDs coming in to various growing units now. So growing in the future and really where we are from here on in the UK for sure, there will be more changes to the legislation regarding what water can be used and nutrient use, and I'm sure that will be the same in other countries. Completely sealed systems will become the norm, as we find now in CEA as it is. There will be this problem with nutrient accumulation, which will need some careful chemistry and knowledge to prevent these things happening. And drain water treatment before use in the system will probably benefit from reverse osmosis to remove sodium chloride and so on. And we'll have to look at other types of wastewater for use in these systems without a doubt. That leads us to building integrated agriculture and vertical farming. I'd like to just show you some examples of systems that are running in the UK and further afield. So this is growing underground in London, in Clapham High Street. These are deep level shelters that were built in 1944 in the Second World War for really for sheltering people from the bombing above. So most of these tunnels are either used for the London Underground or are empty, and growing underground utilise the space to build a hydroponic system and a growing system on the top. So you can see the situation in 1944 on the left-hand side, where people were sheltering inside. And then on the right-hand side, we have these growing structures. So there's only 4 levels within the tunnel due to the space, and you're only seeing half the tunnel here. The bit below ground, as it were, below the picture there, contains all the pipe work and the nutrient dosing systems, and the part on the top contains the crop growing area. So they're utilising most of it for growing microgreens and microherbs for use 100 feet up in the restaurants in the high street in London. Complete opposite to that, Bronx agritecture in New York, where growing in controlled conditions on top of buildings. So this is growing lettuce in the glass houses, and then taking the produce straight down into shops and streets in New York. We've also heard earlier on about rice and wheat, and this is a very old photograph now of an urban farm in Tokyo where they're growing rice in a controlled situation inside a building. I think we've moved on a lot from there in terms of the systems that can be utilized to control the growth of the plants in terms of lighting and hydroponics. And I think, as somebody else touched on earlier on today, it's the breeding of the plants that now is very important in terms of having something that will fit into the space in which you're constructing your hydroponic system and your growing units. So the plants need to be much more compact. They need to be easy to pollinate, if that's a factor, and they need to be very, very compact in nature to allow for easy growth and harvesting. Just like to finish by showing you some photographs of the unit I was involved in at Jones Food Company. And this is a project that was completed in Lincolnshire a few years ago, utilizing a redundant cold store facility. We were very conscious of utilizing the building that existed, and there was lots of discussion about us being frugal with our use of materials and reusing structures as much as possible. And we wanted to demonstrate that we could grow a commercial crop rather than just an R&D unit in this structure. So first of all, we went to Japan, as you do, just to have a look at systems there. And this was a lettuce production facility at Mirai. And they were growing different types of lettuce and also some herbs for production over 1 to 3 months in duration. The cold store that we purchased looked like this before we started work on it. So it was full of industrial racking for storage of materials and produce. So the first job was to remove all of the racking. And this is what we were left with after treatment with special paints on the floor and cleaning the whole structure to give us effectively a white box with clean reflective surfaces. Outside, we built a water management module, so just an extension really, in which we could put the water tanks. And you might remember from an earlier slide that the glasshouse units in Holland are used to store water inside as well, and that's very important from a prevention of contamination point of view. The growing racks were constructed inside the box, and we had 5 main racks inside the growing room on which we suspended the lighting system. Okay, inside the box as well, we also had to allow for harvesting and cleaning zones. And outside, we connected all of the air handling units together. So this was the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units that would take air into the building and in a filtered condition, and then remove air and any moisture and condition the air going back in so that we had the right temperature, humidity, and ethylene concentration. We also fully clothed the building in solar photovoltaic panels, but that really only accounted for a small proportion of the electricity use. The secondary phase of that was to connect to existing solar and wind power close by. We made the conditions inside the building extremely clean, so people changed their clothing before coming into the unit and stepped over a barrier. and then walked through an air shower to come into the unit. And the air was important to remove any hair and any debris on the clean room clothing that was supplied. We allowed space for a germination chamber, and here you see the trays that had already been clothed in the growing substrate and seeding, which had taken place in a separate room. And in here, we were able to control the temperature and the humidity to effect a very fast germination, and most things were germinated within about 3 days. And then in the growing room itself, the trays that you saw in the germination room were then transferred into the growing room and put in at one end, this end that you see here. And then after 4 weeks, the products were taken out of the other end of the racks. We used a very efficient type of LED luminaire here. This is one based on red, blue, and white so that you can actually see what's happening in the crop, and you see a normal color of leaf rather than a sort of very dark or almost black situation. So this is General Electric's current by GE Arise Link lights, efficiency of over 50%. So that's the transfer of power into actual light rather than heat. So we were mindful of trying to reduce the amount of heat being given off by these luminaires and maximizing the light transfer from the energy supplied. And it was used for herb production initially. This is flat leaf parsley, which we were able to get very good quality produce after about 4 to 5 weeks of growing in the unit. Also suitable, these systems for soft fruit and flowers. This is Terlac orchids in Holland, beautiful system, only one layer, and you can imagine that being converted into several layers in a CEA unit or a vertical farm. And also, as pointed out earlier on in the other presentations, very suitable for medicinal and pharmaceutical crops. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. Yeah, you've addressed important aspects. I'm really glad that you've talked about using wastewater for hydroponics, so that we can close the loop inside the house. You've talked about the importance of recirculation, and you've talked about the importance of utilizing existing infrastructure for hydroponic and vertical farming. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul Challoner. We will answer and address all the questions just after the session, so please stay with us. Well, I'm really glad and happy to welcome and introduce Dr. Rida Shibli. His Excellency, Dr. Rida Shibli is the Professor of Plant Biotechnology, and he's currently Dean of Faculty of Agricultural Technology at Al-Oula Amman University. And he's former member of Agricultural Committee at the Senate House. And he's the former Minister of Agriculture in Jordan. He has published more than 170 articles and book chapters, and he has supervised more than 50 PhD and master students. Dr. Rida, we're happy to have you with us. Please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muayyad, and I would like to thank the organizers of this webinar, which is really very significant and important for the current situation of the world agriculture. And I have with me my student, Tamara Gdah. She is sharing this presentation with me. First of all, I will have some redundant information with my colleagues who spoke before me. So when I look to a country like Jordan, and we look to the whole world, actually the world population is increasing at a fast rate, and we are expecting about 8 billion people by the year 2050. And maybe 8 to 9 billion people, it depends on how the things will go. But at the same time, if you look at the growth rate of the food production in the world, actually it will be a very big problem of the world to meet the demand of the population at that time. And at the same time, we don't know how the world is going to go through the many problems, crises in the world we have. Over the last 2 years, when the COVID-19 situation were over the world, every country started to talk about its own business. And that was really a big problem. I don't think the world will be a peaceful world and it will stop these bad wars, and then we will be relaxed and we know the supply chains will be the same and there will be no problem of getting the food to the people. When I was looking at the chat box with the people who are attending with us, I saw somebody asking, are we going to produce, or the meaning of the question, fruit trees using controlled environment agriculture? Actually, we could not meet the world demand of corn and soybean and wheat and fruit trees through controlled environment agriculture. But controlled environment agriculture is one sector which will help in the production of part of the world needs, and you can produce the commodity, and we will talk about some of the advantages, and my colleagues also talk about this before. So in order to increase agricultural production with the limited resources, we really have to look at technology advancement in the world. And Jordan is one of the countries now who are really approaching how to utilize technologies, advanced technologies, smart technologies, in order to really get better production, better quality, and to produce at the time which you need the product, because you could not produce everything at the same time, every time in the year. So also at the same time, the climate change is another hassle, is another big problem for a country like Jordan. In Jordan, we used to have rain in September. The rain starts in September, and usually the end of May, we're still getting rain. But today, in most years, maybe over the last 10 years, we started to get the rain on December, and usually by the end of March, sometimes we get some rain, sometimes we do not get rain. That means we have to work on the production period. So the crops which we are using rainfall, we should work for short season crops in order to accommodate and to work with the situation in this case. Also at the same time, when we export our commodities, we have problems. We have to trace the chemicals, we have to trace the pesticides, we have to reduce those things. And also at the same time, for the health of our people, we have to work on this kind of work in order to get better quality products for the people. Then what's the way in order to get to better quality of products? So if we look to the other factor in the region, Jordan, the per capita for a person in Jordan is 80 cubic meters of water per year, where the world average is around 1,000. So a human in Jordan is just getting 80 cubic meters of water for himself all the year round. What we consume of water in Jordan is 1 billion cubic meters of water consumed every year in Jordan. 53% of that water goes to agriculture, and the other part is for the population. But at the same time, the increase in the population is becoming really a bigger problem in Jordan. Our estimation is that this year, Jordan will have about 6 to 6.5 million people. But now we are 11.5 because we are getting a lot of people who migrated because of wars, people who are migrated because of problems. So this case sometimes put you in front of that. The limiting factor for agriculture in Jordan is water by the first step. And actually, I have said it in many of the forums that in Jordan, we should not consider the productivity per unit area, but the productivity should be per unit water used because we have to maximize the water use efficiency in Jordan. So this is another situation which we are facing in a country like Jordan. So if you look, this is the water situation in Jordan. And as you see here, about 53% of the water goes to the agriculture, but at the same time, agriculture share in the GDP of Jordan is just 2.8%. So some people are looking at that 2.8% is very low, but the way to maximize it is really to introduce new technologies. But at the same time, the agribusiness share in the GDP, when I say agribusiness, I'm saying about pesticides manufacturers, fertilizers manufacturers, machinery, irrigation systems, etc. So that's about 28%. So if the 2.8% is not going to be there, then we are going to lose the 28 or 30% of our GDP. So agriculture will continue in this direction to be as a big part of the situation. So if we look at Jordan, the only planted area in Jordan is about 2.2 million dunams. And when I say dunam, a hectare is 10 dunams, because some people, they do not know the dunam. Dunam is a unit area in Jordan. A hectare is 10 dunams. So it's 1,000 square meters. So all what is used in Jordan, out of 87,000 square kilometers in Jordan, is just 2.2 million dunams are used for the production in Jordan, and they are used for those different areas: field crop, vegetables, fruit trees, olives, and that's the whole area in Jordan. So at the same time in Jordan, we are using a huge number of laborers in agriculture. Agriculture is an intensive in labor use, and this is another cost on the farm system. If you look to the country of Jordan, you can see Jordan Valley with the green color, highlands with the green colors, and you have the word desert. Actually, I don't like the word desert to be written on the map of Jordan. Jordan doesn't have desert. Desert, when you have sands, when you have dunes, we have those things. But desert, Jordan has a dry land. And once you get dry land, it receives less than 200 millimeters of rain every year. But if you get water for those areas, it's virgin land. It's a very nice land. The production is very excellent in it. And it's clean land because there are no diseases, no pathogens, no problems. So you can use it for a good production. So the problem is a water problem. So this is actually the area planted in different crops in Jordan, which I don't think we need to keep looking at it, but I can say that the total of fruits, field crops, and vegetables, it comes up to 2.2 million dunams. This is just some statistics. And at the same time, in Jordan, we are getting down in the production of wheat because wheat depends on rainfall, and we have no areas to grow it because most of the highlands and the areas which are getting more rain, now they are no longer existed because of the expansion of the urban areas. And now we depend basically on the imported wheat. Jordan production of wheat just makes about 2% of the country need, which is nothing. Let me move ahead. And when I go to the controlled environment agriculture, people are talking about vertical farming, indoor farming, but actually for me, it's the way of the to control the environment. Do we need to control the environment for the production? Because the various climate conditions in Jordan, we have microclimates in Jordan. Also, they are helping in the production of crops. So we actually, personally, I don't think I have to go to the most sophisticated controlled environment agriculture because the cost of that agriculture is going to be high. So it will be very big. The prices will be high, then the consumers will face a big problem unless you work with some or certain crops, but not the major commodity of crops in Jordan. So this is one of the examples. This is a company in Jordan. We call it the Al-Oula company. And they are really now establishing a good structures of controlled environment agriculture. But if we go to the greenhouses, starting with the conventional plastic houses, up to this sophisticated. I don't want to say controlled environment agriculture when I'm talking about Jordan. I would say advanced greenhouses in Jordan, because advanced, yes, they have using technology, they are using, but it's not fully controlled in every aspect. So this is most what we see here, because the most controlled environment or the rigorous controlled environment agriculture is when you go for glass houses, and then with all the lights, with the temperature, with the humidity, with all of those things. And they are very, very expensive. 1 dönum of glass houses in Jordan costs more than $300,000. So if I'm going to pay $300,000 per dönum, which is 1,000 square meter, I have to know what commodity I'm going to produce and what the prices are going to sell. Because when I go to the central market of Jordan and I'm looking about to 4,000 tons of vegetables every day, they are coming to the central market, then I have to go and look at the prices of those commodities, and then the consumers who are going to consume them, and then if I'm using that glass house, where I'm going to produce that commodity, is it for exporting or for the local use? So feasibility of the project would be a major point to discuss here. So people are going actually to controlled agriculture, because we can regulate the humidity, we can regulate the temperature, the lights, and all the different aspects, the key driving factors. In this case, we can really control them. And I would say that in Jordan now, we have many projects that are using advanced controlled agriculture, but I'm not saying controlled environment agriculture, fully controlled by all aspects, because they are not greenhouses. We are going with multi-span plastic houses that are fully controlled for temperature, and they are fully computerized, and even some of them, they are using some smart technologies. They are using digital technologies for controlling the water, controlling the temperature, controlling the fertilizer in the system. And one of these projects are with Mu'ta University, one of them with the Sunduq al-Hashimi, one of them with Al-Masiyya. I could say here all, I would say most, I would not say all, strawberry production in Jordan. It's a vertical farming system in Jordan, and I think many of my colleagues, they know those different farms who are doing this work. So why the people are going? Because we can produce air year-round, and also we can save the environment from outside contamination, and we can avoid also the soil problems. These days also in Jordan, we are facing some problems in the soil, especially for growing vegetables, like nematoda, like salinity increase in Jordan Valley. So in order to get off the soil problems, we are moving ahead to this direction. So also we have to look here at the cost management in this case, because we can control the diseases, the amount of fertilizers applied, the water we are using in the irrigation, because in Jordan also the fertilizer is a big cost now. Fertilizers are getting higher prices, especially the imported part of the fertilizers. Also soil monitoring, we can monitor the soil very well, and people who have the projects, I have some of those big, large scale farmers, actually they are a friend of mine, and I'm visiting them. They have on their panel control, they have a very good control of those factors in this case. But actually the question which I would see here, large scale farmers, they have no problems. Large scale farmers, they can go, they can adopt the technology, they can afford the technology, and they can do this kind of work. My problem is the large number of smallholder farmers, and those are the ones which I would really get projects to see how can I help those peoples in order to really shift to, I would not say controlled environment agriculture, but let us say to advanced controlled agriculture, where they can manage and produce a better commodity, a better quality, a better marketing, and added value for the production. So in this chart also, we are talking about these different factors, monitoring the application, the services, the sensors, and also just 2 months ago, I am running a small international organization, we call it the Association of Agricultural Institutions in North Africa and the Near East. And just 2 months ago, I had a workshop in smart agriculture with the Turkey people. They are advancing very well in the smart agriculture. 2 weeks ago, we had a workshop in smart agriculture in Jordan at my university, and His Excellency Dr. Dweri was with us. Dr. Nabil Assaf was with us also. There are many farmers now, they are adopting the technology and they're using it. And even some of them, they are using applications to help themselves to administer and to direct the work at their farms. So this is just an example with the water usage. When you go to open field with a crop of lettuce, you are using 250 liters. If you go into the greenhouse, you are using 20 liters. If you are doing vertical farming, you are using 1 liter. So that's a big difference in the situation. Also in our region, people now are getting a growing industry of date palm. Date palm now is becoming increasing very high. I was just a few days ago at the 7th International Date Palm Conference in Abu Dhabi, which was organized by Khalifa International Award, and His Excellency Dr. Dweri was with us there. So now people, they think date palm doesn't consume water. 1 dönum of date palm, 1 dönum, which is 1,000 square meters, it consumes 1,000 from 1,000 to 1,500 cubic meters of water. This is a huge amount of water, so we have to go to smart technologies where we can control the factual need of the plant of water in order not to really consume that much of water. So the advantage of indoor farmers, I'm not going to repeat this because it has been said before me, but I would like these emerging technologies, the high initial cost, this is a bigger problem, and usually only large-scale farmers can afford the controlled environment agriculture if it's a sophisticated system. Also, the maintenance cost is high. Dr. Hale said about the energy. Also, energy is another problem, and many of the large-scale farmers in Jordan now, they shifted to the solar systems, which is really important. Also, some of them, they are facing a pollination problem, especially with the increase of the humidity. So some crops, like if you go to some of these crops, if you should manage to have a good pollination in order to get your crop. So in Jordan, actually, there were many projects, and some of them are small scale, and some of them actually, they are increasing in the size. So the protected agriculture started back in 1968. The first plastic house in Jordan was back in 1968 at the Al-Oula research station. Today in Jordan, we have around 87,000 plastic houses in Jordan. And we have also about 20 different multi-span big projects, one of them in Mafraq area, one in the Jordan Valley, and others also in the highlands. So those people, they are using the vertical farming. Today, Al-Masiyah group, they are moving ahead in aquaponic cultures, where they have one of the nice projects actually they are running now in Al-Jiza area. So hydroponics are going on, and actually people these days in Jordan, they are not moving to the hydroponic itself, but they are going to the soil culture, where they are using the coconut peat, the compressed one, instead of using the hydroponics, because that system is much easier to work with it. So Al-Masiyah, we have Al-Bira Society, we have many projects now, and even at the agricultural associations, Jordan, the women part of this society also, they have part of the society where they are doing such kind of work, and they have projects in the Jordan Valley. Aquaponics also now, some people doing that. And also I would like to thank the FAO for really supporting a bigger project in the Ministry of Agriculture to support the aquaponics. And I think this project now is going on. Dr. Nabil Assaf, he is the director of the regional office in Jordan now, and he's with us today. There are some startups, which is really very good, and I'm enjoying it. Today with us, Dr. Khalid Khresat, he knows some of those startups. We have the Tulwa, We have also other ones. Dr. Hale also said something about the genetically modified crops. Actually, yes, I am a biotechnologist and I am one of the people who are pro the genetic modifications to really get today more than 90% of the corn in the United States is genetically modified. Most of the soybean in the world genetically modified. South America, most of the production of soybean and corn there is produced genetically modified. Canola oil, which we are getting everywhere in the world, is coming from genetically modified. So actually moving to these crops, because we have in Jordan, we have also Syngenta and some other companies, they are working here in Jordan. I will move ahead fast, but what I would say, actually for me, I believe that we should focus on more introducing smart applications, smart agriculture, digital agricultures to the farmers, and we should utilize these systems because they are the way to help us in order to go in this direction. I think I'm almost done. But I would like to say also there is a Hasad. This is one of the good, really agri-tech startups in Jordan. Also, the National Agriculture Research Center, they have an incubator there. There are many companies in agriculture in the incubator running their work. Okay, I will save the time and stop here. Thank you so much. But okay.
Professor Rida, thank you so much. Very inspiring talk. You've talked about controlled environment agriculture and hydroponic in Jordan. You've shed lights on different aspects. In fact, I was so excited to hear about production per unit of water, not production per unit of land, which is quite interesting. It is really Dr. Rida, in fact, has talked about, has added the social dimension of controlled environment agriculture. He was talking about the small farmers versus large farmers. How we are going to enhance this concept and to integrate the concept of smart agriculture and advanced technology into small-scale farmers arena, not only large farmers. So yeah, lots of things. Thank you so much, Dr. Rida. And now we are pleased to introduce Nick Bateman. Nick Bateman is responsible for the strategic direction of Grow Pura to firmly establish the brand and its innovative technology as market leaders in the vertical farming hydroponics industry. Nick has his finger firmly on the pulse of both sustainable agriculture and social economic behavior trends and demands, and as the technical expertise and environmental knowledge to bring farming solutions that bridge that gap. He has a proven track record in the biotechnology and food industries, and he's been working with Zeneca, Lloyds Bank, British Steel Corporation, and most recently Mallo Foods Limited Company, and all of these positions has positioned him to steer Grow Pura to become the industry leaders. Nick Bateman, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you for inviting me to talk to you all. It's been very interesting to hear all the previous speakers. I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yes, we do.
I'm going to really talk to you about the journey we've been on, Grow Pura, over the last 10 years to try and find the best solution for vertical farming. I can't seem to, oh, I don't know. So I'm going to talk, give you an idea of the approach I'm going to take. Then I'm going to look at some of the crucial control areas. I know a lot of you have gone through this in earlier talks, so I won't deal with this in a technical way. And then I'm going to talk to you about our experience and our trial work. And then I'm going to talk about the fact that we are now able to offer contract research, and also we're able to license our technology. So the big issue that people have addressed, and the last speaker particularly addressed it on a number of points, disadvantages of controlled environment agriculture being heavy use of energy, and the fact it's difficult to get the cost to the point at which it is financially viable. And we started our company back in 2012, although we've been looking at vertical farming for a couple of years beforehand, and some of our team had been working on vertical farming back in 2008. So I'm going to take you through some of our insights and some of the things we thought were a success or of our trials. And so we started with two different sites. So in 2012, we started building a natural sunlight polycarbonate building with automated moving plants, and that helped us to solve a range of problems, but it also taught us a number of lessons. It taught us the absolute importance of having clean air. It taught us the absolute importance of having the best quality of water filtration and control, and also to ensure that any access to the greenhouse prevented any pests coming in from outside. And so we ran that for about 3 years. The products were excellent, got lots of interest in the products from small and large companies. And then we moved in 2016, and we ran a facility which was an indoor facility using 100% artificial lights. It's very fair to say that the improvement in LED lights has been phenomenal over the time period. When we first started, we used high pressure sodium, and although LED lights were around, they were still at an infant stage. And one of the things that the trials told us was, for a consumer, a customer point of view, you need to have you need to have uniform and consistent growth, and you also, in our view, need to be a clean room. So our facilities are built to clean room standards. The environmental aspects, adverse costs of energy, the high use of energy, one really needs to solve that problem. And whilst solar is fine, solar doesn't give you, certainly in a number of climates around the world, it doesn't give you 24/7 energy. And so you do need to work at finding a better way of providing the energy for lighting. And I think the solutions we worked at were moving the plants has a number of benefits. It improves the airflow, which improves the growth, which improves the yield. The movement of the plant actually enables us to use less light fittings than if it was a static system. It enables us to reduce the energy required. We are working in systems where we can have a mixed economy, natural sunlight plus LEDs, or LEDs only. we are tackling, and we always set out to tackle the problem of scale. I think one of the previous speaker mentioned the cost of a small facility in Jordan, the capital cost, and that's always a problem if you're at a small scale. And so we've worked on solutions to get the costs down so that you can provide product at the right price. This is not to say that we could today reduce the cost of wheat grown vertically to the cost of wheat grown outdoors. But those kind of things are the kind of future challenges of the sector. The other thing that moving the product does is it gives you incredible flexibility. And if you have, as we do, collect significant amounts of information, that's really good if there's something you can do when you've collected the information and do it in real time. So that's the journey we've been on. And so I'm now going to look at these following areas: the movement, lighting, clean air, humidity and temperature, water and data. So I'm hoping you're getting a good insight into how we've structured our research and how we've developed our systems and process, which are patented, by the way. So if you don't move products, you do have a risk of hotspots, and you do have a risk of actually the lack of airflow, a lack of plant stimulus. In our first facility, we found that the tray gaps were too tight, and that although we were moving the product, we couldn't get uniform growth, and the plants in the centre of the training environment struggled. So we dealt with all of those kind of issues. The economical benefit of moving comes in having reduced number of lights, reduced number of irrigation fittings by using centralized irrigation, and by having a highly automated system, reducing the amount of labor required. So the carbon footprint is the environmental aspect that we all need to be careful about, and certainly in today's immediate environment when energy costs are going through the roof, and there's public awareness more and more about the issues caused by climate change and the need to dramatically change. We can't end up with a solution which actually doesn't solve the carbon footprint issue. So we've ended up with a system whereby, as I've said a couple of times, we end up needing less light. And we've done trials, and we work with a number of lighting companies, and I'll come on to that. We need less irrigation systems by centralizing the irrigation, and this has resulted in a significant reduction in capital outlay and in a reduction in site running costs. So we believe we haven't completely solved the scale up challenge, but we have a great solution. And we are now wanting to work at expanding the number of plants that can operate in that kind of system, but there will need to be modification. And I think one of your speakers mentioned pollination being an issue. There are solutions to that, but they're not as robust as we would like. So I think Professor Mick Fuller talked a lot about lighting. We're working with 5 different lighting companies. we want to, we know that the technology will develop more and more, and I can remember the slide that Mick put up about Basel and the detailed understanding of that. Of course, all the companies we work with, do their research, but they're also trying to sell commercial products. And what we need to validate is that their commercial products work in our environment, and the kind of learning that Mick Fuller comes up with is really, really important in the development of lighting. And I just put up a simple chart to show the different light wavelengths required for plant photosynthesis. But I don't intend to go into that in any depth. So our model, our approach to life has been to work at how you get the business to be commercially competitive at scale. We've got a pie chart there which gives you some indication of where the energy is used in a facility. Now we, in our environments, end up with a pie chart which is smaller in total because we've made savings, and the lighting cost is a smaller percentage of the total because we're using conveying, which has a cost, but it's not anywhere near as significant as LEDs. And so we've changed the balance of where we spend the money. The control of light when you're using a combined system with natural sunlight and artificial light is more complicated, but dimming technology enables you to deal with that. And it's very important to have the right level of sensors in place to give you that kind of control. But the key thing is that the pie chart is shown there is different in our system. It's smaller in size, and also the LED costs are less. So, clean air. So not growing in soil removes soil-based pests. Doesn't remove airborne pests, and so we insisted on a system where we intensify the filtration of the air into the system, and then we were concerned about CO2, carbon dioxide. And I think one of the earlier speakers mentioned about building technology, and so we worked hard at that. Greenhouses are not typically good environments for controlling the egress of air. In fact, many are designed to actually open the vents and let air out. Obviously, we in a controlled environment, you can't do that. And so we worked at a building design and technology so that we have positive air pressure to control the airflows. So in the growing environment, there is no air coming in from outside, apart from the filtration system. And the second thing we worked at is how we minimize any air egress through the building fabric, so that because we're supplementing the air with CO2 to improve the growth and the yield, we're not then having an adverse impact on the environment by that escaping into the CO2 escaping into the environment. We believe we are on that journey, and we have made vast improvements in that. But I believe this is still an area one can work further at. So what we're now working on is to develop systems to go to markets, not just food, but to go into biopharmaceutical, and we believe that that is well within our grasp. But we're also looking to make sure that we have solutions that work for smaller businesses. We're also looking at solutions that can work more locally in terms of biopharmaceuticals. Controlling plants is probably a lot easier than more significant pharmaceutical companies, and is also cheaper. And there are evidence of companies now actually launching vaccines based on plants. Humidity and temperature. I still think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of HVAC systems. We have a solution that works, but ideally like to see solutions that were more cost effective, less costly to run, more efficient control. So we have to have multi-unit redundancy. We have a high level of filtration, as I mentioned, which is to clean room standards. We have got a sensory array so that we can adapt what we're doing at any point in time. And because we're moving the plants, this gives you an added element that you can control. We've got additional air movement units in the biohalls to control the distribution of air. So we've got the moving of the conveyors to help the plants, and secondly, we've got additional air recirculating system. So in any facility, we would encourage people to have more than one growing environment, so that not all growing environments suit all plants, not all lighting conditions suit all plants. And so in our first major facility, we have 2 biohalls, and I think it would be quite possible to have many more. And all of this gives you more control over your yield and providing the optimum condition for any of the plants you're growing at any particular time. The movement and the data and the building gives you more control. Water is most important because of the shortage of water around the world. But it's also important to make sure that you've got the right level of water filtration and cleaning process. We know of many people who have spent too little on the water systems, and that has worked. They've been okay for a short period, and then they've had a major problem. So we've got multiple layers of filtration to make sure the water is okay. We recirculate the water. We're looking at further ways of reducing the amount of water that's moved around the premises. Of course, we've got a centralized irrigation system which does that to some extent, but there's even more work to be done there. So the plants travel through an irrigation system that reduces the amount of capital and running costs and gives us much more control. And it's a lot more control in terms of the cleaning of those kind of systems, which are also really important. So I'm not going to delve too deeply into data, but we have a totally automated system from germination through to harvesting. Most of that area should not require people to ensuring cleanliness. Clearly, part of the data is to enable the automation to work effectively. And then in terms of the growing data, it's all about manipulating the plants as they're moving so that we can adjust the light and the humidity, etc., and to deal with problems as they arise. And what we're looking at really is to see how we can improve the efficiency of the process through the provision of data. AI is going to be an increasingly important role in the facility and will help the systems become more autonomous. So just like in the other areas, by moving the plants, the plants pass through the sensors every now and again, every day. And so we're collecting lots of data, but we don't have to have sensors throughout the whole of the facility to know what's going on. And this of course, also aids to the reduction in the capital cost. So what we're doing now is putting up a facility which will enable us to offer trials for other people to look at crop viability, quality, taste and shelf life, to demonstrate the increased yields from overstatic systems, provide settings for or provide work for people to look at new facilities for themselves, and for people to get a much more accurate financial model on their system. So we're offering both training in person and virtually for people, contract research, doing product trials and hydroponic training. I just want to finally talk about, I can't see the screen at the moment, about licensing. So we are licensing our technology worldwide, so we can deliver feasibility studies for people so they can end up with bespoke and tailored systems. We would, with our partners, provide turnkey solutions with ongoing support as required and fully managed services if that is what people required. And just to give people an example, we have done some analysis which demonstrates that other systems probably cost up to 38% more than our system. The energy cost is something like 42% more, and there's a higher spend on operating costs. This is based on the public data that we can access. And this gives you, for many products, a gross margin of over 70%. And finally, we're always available to talk to people about what we can do with them. Yes, I'd like you to thank you for listening to me, and hope we can all progress on the journey of improving the opportunity for vertical farming over the coming years, as is extremely essential we do that and do it in an environmentally sustainable way. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nick. You've talked about research and development of controlled environment agriculture over the last decade. And as we've seen, there have been lots of progress in terms of research and development of plant factory and controlled environment agriculture. And what as I mentioned earlier, what is interesting in this domain, that the research outputs of controlled environment agriculture are being commercialized at commercial level and adopted from private companies. Thank you so much, Nick. And now we are going to join our colleagues from CAXT. Dr. Abdullah, are you with us? Engineer Abdullah Saud. to take us to like live journey, live virtual trip to plant factory at Kakst. Engineer عبد العزيز.
عبد العزيز صحيح.
أهلا وسهلا فيك.
يا مرحبا.
يا أهلا وسهلا. This trip is going to be in Arabic. So our colleagues who are not Arabic speakers, so please go to the interpretation icon. So عبد العزيز احنا معك الآن. عبد العزيز ممكن تعرف عن نفسك مهندس عبد العزيز إذا تكرمت؟
معك المهندس عبد العزيز هلي من مدينة الملك عبد العزيز الملك عبد العزيز العلوم التقنية، مهندس زراعي في أنظمة الزراعة العمودية.
تمام، أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا. أهلا وسهلا فيك. حضرتك سمعنا منيح؟
الصوت واضح بالنسبة لي أنا، الصوت واضح لكم؟
يعني واضح إلى حد ما، بس يبدو في يعني صوت تشويش قليلا، صوت الهواء.
وراح ننتقل إلى داخل الوحدة إن شاء الله الآن.
يلا ننتقل إلى الداخل إن شاء الله، تفضل.
طيب في البداية نتكلم عن أنظمة الزراعة العمودية. أنظمة الزراعة العمودية هي الأنظمة الزراعية المغلقة والتي يتم التحكم بشكل دقيق بدرجات الحرارة والرطوبة النسبية وتركيز غاز ثاني أكسيد الكربون. تعتمد هذه الأنظمة بشكل كلي على أنظمة الإضاءة اللي بدلا لأشعة الشمس. نواجه العديد من التحديات سواء في ارتفاع في درجات الحرارة أو انخفاض الرطوبة النسبية أثر على عملية الإنتاج الزراعي في الحقول المكشوفة، وكذلك الاستهلاك العالي للمياه في البيوت المحلية.
تمام، ندخل للداخل أحسن.
نهتم في مدينة الملك عبد العزيز العلوم التقنية من خلال هذه الأبحاث إلى تحقيق رؤية المملكة 2030 والرامية إلى تطبيق أفضل الممارسات الزراعية في المجال الزراعي، وكذلك المحافظة على الموارد المائية وإنتاج غذاء ذو كفاءة عالية في استخدام الموارد من طاقة ومياه وأسمدة. أن الآن في غرفة التحكم نعمل حاليا على قياس كفاءة عمل هذا النظام في ظل ظروف المملكة العربية السعودية القاسية. تصل درجات الحرارة إلى 50 درجة مئوية وتنخفض الرطوبة النسبية إلى ما دون 10%. من خلال هذه الوحدة نعمل على قياس كمية استهلاك المياه واستهلاك الطاقة الكهربائية في وحدة التبريد، وكذلك الطاقة الكهربائية المستهلكة لوحدة أو أنظمة الإضاءة، وتأثير العوامل المناخية الخارجية على هذه الوحدة. كذلك هنا في وحدة التحكم يتم التحكم بدرجات الحرارة بشكل دقيق، سواء بدرجات الحرارة أو بالرطوبة النسبية. كذلك توجد وحدة مخصصة لخلط المحاليل الغذائية والعناصر المهمة لنمو النبات وضخها إلى وحدة التحكم. تعمل هذه الوحدة حاليا بنظام خلط المحلولين كما هو متعارف في السوق، محلول A و B، ولكن يتيح النظام التوسع كذلك في إيجاد عناصر إضافية ومحاليل إضافية، فهي تتيح خلط مجموعة تصل إلى 7 مجاميع من المركبات ممكن خلطها، وكذلك التحكم بها بشكل دقيق من خلال نظام التحكم، والذي يعمل على معايرة وتحديد النسب المطلوبة للموصلية الكهربائية الAC، وكذلك درجة الحموضة اللي هي الPH. يعمل كذلك على المحافظة على درجة الPH، بحيث إذا كان هناك حاجة إلى رفع أو خفض درجة الPH عن القيم المدخلة يتم بشكل آلي عملية ضبط الدرجة المناسبة وضخ التركيبة في مياه الري إلى وحدة الزراعة. كذلك نعم نستطيع عملية التحكم عن بعد سواء في المكتب أو في أي مكان بالنظام بشكل كامل، ومراقبة النظام عن طريق كاميرات المراقبة. نستطيع التحكم بدرجات الحرارة وكذلك نسب ومعدلات الAC والBH بشكل دقيق وبنسب الخلط، وكذلك مواعيد الري وغيره من التحكم. يسمح النظام أيضا بعملية إدارة ومتابعة المتغيرات سواء في درجات الحرارة وفي معدلات المحاليل، متابعتها بشكل دقيق وإصدار التقارير المطلوبة، وكذلك إعطاء مؤشرات عن أداء عمل النظام. يتيح النظام أيضا عملية الإنذار في حال لا قدر الله حصل هناك ارتفاع في درجات الحرارة أو تغير في معدلات ال AC وال BH بشكل غير المرغوب فيه، يتم الإنذار سواء برسالة على الجوال أو برسالة على الإيميل، بحيث يمكن معالجة الموضوع قبل تلف المحصول. ننتقل الآن إلى وحدة الزراعة. في وحدة الزراعة يتم التعقيم قبل الدخول للوحدة للمحافظة على المحاصيل.
دكتور مهندس عبد العزيز،
تفضل.
هذه الكمامة عشان كوفيد ولا عشان الدخول
لا عشان الدخول، وبنزلها عشان الصوت يكون واضح.
طيب تمام.
نحن الآن في وحدة الزراعة. في وحدة الزراعة يتم الاستفادة من وحدة المساحة والتوجه العمودي بدلا من التوجه الأفقي في الزراعة. تتميز هذه الأنظمة وذكروها الزملاء إمكانية الإنتاج طوال العام. هذه الوحدة أو هذه الأنظمة لا تتأثر بالظروف المناخية الخارجية. معدلات الإنتاج أعلى، تصل إلى 100 ضعف الحقول المكشوفة و10 أضعاف البيوت المحمية. تنتج هذه الأنظمة غذاء آمن خالي من المبيدات، وكذلك كفاءة عالية في استهلاك المياه تصل إلى 95%. نظام الري هنا عبارة عن استخدام نظام الهيدروبونيك. يتم الاستفادة من جميع المياه وإعادة استخدامها في أنظمة الري، لا يهدر أي نقطة من المياه. وكذلك يتم إنتاج مياه من خلال وحدة التكييف. يوجد في وحدة التكييف مكثفات تعمل على تكثيف الرطوبة الزائدة في الوحدة. هذه وحدة مغلقة ترتفع فيها نسب الرطوبة، ففي حال ارتفاع نسب الرطوبة عن ما هو مبرمج له يتم تكثيف هذه الرطوبة الزائدة وتحويلها إلى مياه يمكن الاستفادة منها في الري. تعتمد هذه الأنظمة بشكل أساسي على أنظمة الإضاءة، فتنتج ألواح الإضاءة مئات من الأطوال الموجية. يتم التحكم الدقيق في الأطوال الموجية وبشدة الإضاءة وبالفترة الضوئية إلى يتم الوصول إلى أفضل بيئة لعملية الإنتاج. تنوعنا في مشروعنا هنا أو في البحث في توزيع معاملات الإضاءة. عندنا الآن 6 مستويات للإضاءة، كل مستوى يحتوي على مجموعة من الأطياف الضوئية. نعمل على قياس أو أجرينا دراسة على نبات الخس لقياس معدلات الإنتاج لهذه مستويات الإضاءة بكفاءة الإنتاج، وكذلك التغيرات الفسيولوجية وكفاءة أو القيمة الغذائية للمحاصيل. مقابلها أيضا استهلاك سواء الطاقة الكهربائية لأنظمة الإضاءة وكفاءة استهلاك المياه. نعمل حاليا على أيضا التوسع وإدخال أصناف ذات قيمة غذائية أعلى. تعمل حاليا على نبات الكيد وهو من النبات ذو القيمة الغذائية العالية، وكذلك نستهدف بإذن الله العمل على محاصيل ذات قيمة غذائية عالية لدعم سواء أو توسع هذه الأنظمة في المنطقة المملكة العربية السعودية لدعم سواء المزارعين أو المستثمرين وإيجاد بيانات وقاعدة بيانات لمعدلات الإنتاج وكذلك استهلاك الطاقة الكهربائية وكذلك استهلاك المياه. تم تقسيم الوحدة إلى عدة مجموعات. تم مراعاة أيضا وجود خزان لكل مجموعة، خزان أرضي إذا وجود خزان أرضي لكل مجموعة، بحيث إذا كان هناك توسع في الأبحاث وكان هناك مجموعة من المحاليل المغذية يتم توزيعها وقياس مدى تأثير التغيرات من خلال مستويات الإضاءة. في الأخير حاب أشكركم وأشكر دعوتكم لي وتواجدي معكم في هذا المؤتمر، وبإذن الله تكون هناك أعمال قادمة ومؤتمرات قادمة نشارك فيها وتكون ذات قيمة أفضل. شكرا لك.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا مهندس عبد الله، يعني حقيقة أمتعتنا. شكرا جزيلا، ولعلنا لنا زيارة لكم قريبا إن شاء الله حتى نطلع على هذا النظام يعني بشكل قريب أكثر. شكرا جزيلا.
العفو.
بارك الله فيك. شكرا. تمام. Before leaving the floor to Engineer Saeed Al-Bawab to talk a little bit about his green wall, I'd like to open the floor for questions. Does anybody has any question? Colleagues who are joining virtual and اخواننا هون اذا في حدا عنده question. في اسئله؟ ما في اسئله؟ مهندس عبد العزيز عندي سؤال اذا تكرمت.
تفضل معك.
تمام. هذا النظام من ايمتى صار له عندكم؟ من متى يعني بدأ يعمل؟
طبعا النظام له تقريبا ممكن لنا سنة أو خلال ال6 شهور الماضية بدينا في عملية العمل الفعلي في الأبحاث. تقريبا لنا 6 شهور بعدين في العمل الفعلي للأبحاث.
تمام. وبس وبتصور انه نحكي انه الدكتور هيل كذلك من بليموث كان له دور بتصور في
صحيح
سيت اب النظام اللي عندكم. صحيح.
الدكتور هايل ما زال وله الفضل الكبير معنا.
تمام. شكرا دكتور هيل.
وكذلك الدكتور عبد الله الراجحي برضو.
اكيد الدكتور عبد الله الراجحي بلا شك. يعني معناها هلا ما عندكم ارقام فيما يتعلق في الطاقه، فيما يتعلق بالانتاج بير سكوير متر؟ عندكم صار داتابيس او ارقام لهذا الشيء ولا لسه؟
صحيح ان انتهينا من المرحله الاولى من التجارب ونعمل الان على مرحله ثانيه من التجارب، والجميع البيانات هي موجوده، ولكن نحتاج ان ناكد هذه البيانات بتجربه اخرى بحيث انها تكون عندنا داتا سليمه وداتا كامله لجميع اللي هو المواسم، سواء في فصل الشتاء في فصل الصيف، بحيث ان تكون الداتا كلها مستوفيه.
رائع جميل. ونبقى على تواصل ان شاء الله، ضروري نبقى على تواصل حتى ناخذ الداتا اللي عندكم ونشوف كيف كذلك احنا ممكن تسكيل اب هاي التكنولوجيا عندنا في الاردن كذلك. طيب تمام. شكرا جزيلا. شكرا مهندس. الله يبارك فيك. شكرا مهندس عبد الله. شكرا جزيلا.
عبد العزيز.
شكرا مهندس عبد الله عبد العزيز عفوا. شكرا جزيلا. وشكرا جزيلا دكتور عبد الله كذلك على فعلا على مشاركته الفاعله في الاعداد لهي الورشه وفي اقتراح هذه الفيرتشوال تور. شكرا جزيلا.
العفو.
الآن and now I'm really happy to introduce Engineer Saeed Al-Bawab. Engineer Saeed Al-Bawab, he's the founder of a startup. Its name is GreenOn, and Saeed has developed a technology. It's called like Green Wall. He's architecture, by the way. I'm not going to talk much. I leave the floor for you to talk or to tell us about your technology. Saeed.
واحد بيجيب غداء معه بيفتح كله. I'm Saeed Al-Bawab. I'm the founder of GreenOn. Ladies and gentlemen, what is wrong with this picture? For me, is a connection with nature. All the previous speakers, most of them wanted to actually invade the architectural space with plant factories. Actually, we need actually to move onto the city with farming, because it is estimated that we need 2 billion hectares of forests just to mitigate the effects of CO2 by 2050. 2 billion hectares is equivalent to actually the space of
the US and Canada combined. And a fun fact, we need 2,000 years to plant them. So the problems that I wanted to tackle was not about the environment, it's more about the users of the inhabitants of the city. They face space challenges because the spaces that we want to live in, we have a busy lifestyle, we don't have time to actually plant or learn about planting a lot. There is always an expensive solution, and people want to actually move on to more sustainable organic food sources. So who we are, we actually concentrate on actually combining multidisciplinary action into actually developing our product. Architecture, engineering, manufacturing, biology, even biomimicry is actually the main inspiration behind our product. Our goal is actually to reintroduce sustainability in the words of one of our mentors, Bianca Angels, hedonistic sustainability, where actually we have more fun, we have elevated well-being while being sustainable. This is some pictures from my private lab. I started as a DIYer once to just build my own aquaponic system. Then something actually changed in me and I really loved planting, but it costed me a fortune in a lot of time. And I have a full workshop just to build my own farm, but this is not scalable for anybody. So that's why I actually wanted to develop my product, actually to share my experience with everybody without the financial and technical boundaries that I faced. So what I developed is actually a building block. The core patent actually concentrates on the actual construction of the patent. We actually resist the compression and the moment resist the moment 5 times more any other regular form. This enabled a cheap manufacturing ability while maintaining the customizability, and actually you can operate it the way you want, hydroponics, aquaponics, or even traditionally. This is the very worst case scenario, a 50 square meter studio apartment, but we have managed to snug in 900 plants. 20 square meters of farm in a living space, but actually it did not take 20 square meters from the apartment because this is actually a wall and we needed to function architecturally before the actual agricultural application. So it is architecture with a layer of agriculture. With the concentration on aesthetics, scalability, and being affordable by removing all the middle people between the actual operator of the farm and the raw materials. It has a lot of uses and you need no tools. Green walls within everyone's reach is what we actually believe in. You can use it in any style you want. It's like a Lego system that enables the user to become an architect, a designer, and a builder without actually spending a lot of time. A system like this will only take 2 minutes to assemble. Now we have started production, a first round of production, and preparing our desktop version next month, inshallah. This is the price gap that we have between our competitors and what value we provide. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Saeed. Thank you so much, Saeed. we've been working with Saeed for the last couple of years, I believe. Okay, and we're really glad to collaborate with Saeed, and he has established like one green wall at RSS. And I'd like to thank Rima as well, because Rima has been playing a significant role in the journey of Saeed. Thank you, Rima. Well, okay, we've completed all presentations, but the floor is still open for discussion and the questions. So if anybody has questions, please go ahead. We've got questions from Mohammed Al-Isawi and from Mohammed Awais. The question from Mohammed Al-Isawi, it was in Arabic. هل يمكن اعتماد هذا النمط من الزراعة في زراعة المحاصيل الحقلية? Can we rely on this kind of agriculture to cultivate cereals and محاصيل بقولية? Field crops. And I think Nick Nick and Paul, they were mentioning that yes, this kind of agriculture can be used for cereals and other kinds of crops. I don't know if Dr. Hale or Nick would like to comment on this. Paul?
Yeah, I can make a comment on that.
Yeah, please.
I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about development of new varieties. It's all going to hinge on this, in my opinion, because we've already proved the technology to grow the crops, albeit on a very bulky scale. So if you look at the space program, for example, back in the early and mid 80s, there was work going on the Mir space station, looking at super dwarf wheat being grown in very small spaces up there. And the plants were grown successfully, and a harvest took place, I think, in 1987, something like that. So it can be done. There were some issues with setting of the grain, I understand, but it just proved that you can do that successfully in a controlled space, literally in space. And I think to grow these crops successfully, even though I think it's been proved that yields could be very high, you do need better varieties for growing in those spaces, and the same with rice as well. So to answer the question, in the short term, I don't think it's an economic proposition. It will all be down to normal agriculture as it stands right now, but it is possible to grow these plants in CEA, and with developments in varieties and lighting techniques, I'm sure that in the future we will be able to grow these crops more successfully, and possibly for specific uses rather than just general plant nutrition.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we've got another question by Mohammed Awais. How long vertical farming needs to overcome food security? I think Dr. Rida talked about that this kind of agriculture is not like a sole solution for the issue of food security. It's like a tool that can we go through and that can, like, contribute in food security problem. Nick, do you have any comment to add?
I think it's the challenges are to do with the will of people to solve the problem of food security, and the second element is the cost of providing the capital to enable that to take place. So I think it would take a number of years, but I think it's highly probable. Just to follow on from Paul's comments about the wheat and staple products, I think the previous speaker talked about wanting a vast amount of the planet for growing trees because of other issues, and vertical farming then with a change in the way the economy of the world works and people think holistically, then I think we can deal with all that. And of course, if, as Paul says, if you do work on the breeding of new plants, and probably think about changes in diet and think about different products that you can use. More and more people are becoming vegan, less animal protein, other forms of protein, vertical farming, whether it be insects or plants, all of those kind of things will help solve this problem. Time-wise, I think it depends on investment and the speed at which people want to deal with it. I would think you're talking tens of years, not single years, but there could be vast improvements. Singapore wants to improve its food security to be 30% self-sufficient by 2030, and I think that is. I think they're going from 6% to 30%. They have different challenges, but I think all of these things are possible. But it does depend upon the mix of foods that people eat.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick. Okay, now we have 15 minutes for discussion. And before starting the discussion slot, I'd like to give the floor to Engineer Nabil Assaf, the head of FAO office here in Jordan. Okay. Well,
it is working.
It's working. Well, I'd like to give the floor to Engineer Nabil Assaf, the head of FAO office in Jordan, to give his comments and remarks.
Thank you. Marhaba jami'an. I would like really to thank RSS for inviting FAO to take part and to see what is happening in the world regarding the controlled environment and agriculture. Of course, the food security more than ever today is the most challenging topic that we are facing. Maybe some countries are not affected, but there are like 50 countries in the world that are affected now from the crisis that is happening in Europe. Just to mention that 30% of the food price increased only between January 2021 and January 2022. Which means that we are going to face more challenges regarding not only the food price, but also the fertilizers. And this is a very challenging point because also the price of the gas are increasing, which means to produce the same way and doing business as we are doing, we are not going to be able to produce enough food for the same price. That's why such kind of innovation are very important and more data are needed, I would say, regarding the feasibility studies and the economic and the economic assessment, which means we really need to see how much would cost the production of, let's say, of one salad or 1 kilogram of tomato or whatever in such environment. Because when we are, everything is driven by economy and by cost, so and benefit. The main driver is the benefit as well. So, of course, environment is very important, and sustainability of our production system are very important. So, what we are witnessing today, and from what we have seen as research and data, are very important, and we really encourage, and we can put our hands in your hands to see how we can do more trials, do an economic assessment, and see what kind of crops can be produced in such environment in the countries and the region. We all know, and it has been mentioned by everyone, and thanks to all the presenters regarding the challenges of water, regarding the challenge of soil, and regarding, of course, the sustainability of our food systems that we have. So, and thanks to His Excellency Dr. Rida Shibli, he talked about our project in regarding aquaponic. Why aquaponic? Because in our food system, in our region, we are not having affordable price for high quality food. That's why we need to work on the cost of production. And when we do aquaculture in fresh water or in continental water, in inland, I mean water, in marine water, we can have a better access for the vulnerable people to high quality of food and protein. It was mentioned by Nick regarding the food security challenges that are coming. Yes, of course it is. And the challenge is becoming more and more high. Certainly, what we have seen today, we would like to emphasize on the importance of such kind of collaboration and to build on what have been done so far. And we really want to see and to do partnership also with you regarding this pilot plant that you are going to establish in RSS, so that we can collect data and also try to upscale. We as a FAO, we are the platform to upscale such kind of experiences. And thanks again for this.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna start the discussion from where Engineer Nabil has finished. My question is, how can we institutionalize, this tough word, institutionalize the collaboration on controlled environment agriculture? As we've seen today, we've seen lots of progress in terms of research and development. We've seen lots of projects. We've seen lots of successful stories. So, do you have like any ideas, any idea on institutionalizing the collaboration on CA? I'd like to hear from your side, those who are joining us virtually and colleagues here at RSS. So, any idea? Do you think I like the idea of having like organization, standalone organization, as Professor McFuller mentioned. In the UK, they have several organizations dealing with controlled environment agriculture, vertical farming, and so on. Do you think having such like an independent organization, like gathering all of people who are working on such kind of topics, what do you think? Dr. Hale, please.
Can I add a couple of points here?
Actually? Yeah, please.
Number one, I really enjoyed the discussion today, and I think there is very important question that does need to be addressed in order to take this technology forward by educational institution, research center, farmer, and companies as well. And the simple question is it economically valuable? Would people make money from integrating such a technology in the Middle East, in Jordan, and Gulf countries? Does it reduce the cost of a product? You know, this question is very essential to answer in order to be able to decide, to scale up this technology in the Middle East, in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, and Gulf states, or in order to decide to support it, or not. And I was very glad that you've got decision maker with us, in this event today, because those people who will be deciding whether to support it, whether from international organization or local government. And to address this question, really, I think there is a very high need for economical analysis of using this technology under the environment in the middle of the Middle East, to calculate the cost of a production, to compare it with what's available in the market out there, to do the chemical analysis of a product, to compare the quality as well. And here where I would like to say, actually, from the number I've already seen working with various projects in the Middle East, in fact, the cost of a production can be significantly reduced when we apply this technology. So when we talk about lattice, for example, or curly K or lemon balm or all these herbs, when you go vertically, when you are able to place 6 or 7 growth cycle around the year, you can produce tons and tons from very small setting. You know, one big farm would feed a man with lettuce, lemon balm, and basil. And the other point which need to be taken into consideration, you know, when we talk, and I would like to link my comment here to the talk of colleague Dr. Rida Chalabi, which I really did enjoy. When you talk about using advanced greenhouses, you are still limited by the seasonal variation. So if you think about, for example, we are in April, last week, temperature in the Middle East dropped to -8. That means you have to heat the greenhouses, otherwise your product is gone. You can place 2 growth cycle. And when we talk hydroponic agriculture, you know, system in greenhouses to advance the greenhouses, you have already covered maybe 50% of the cost or 20-30% of the cost of vertical farming. Because for hydroponic system, advanced one in the greenhouses, you have to install the hydroponic system, you have to install the dosing system, you have to, you know, install the circulation system. So you already, you know, covering part of the vertical farming cost, you know, this initial capital cost. So going further step, you know, to do it vertically would really increase the production, would really increase the yield, and would sort out an issue. The other thing which I would like to mention, the waste and the need of a transportation. When you grow in open field or greenhouses, you have to collect your product. Some of them can't be stored or need to be stored at low temperature, transfer them to the consumption point, get sold to people, all this, you know, you get lost here, you get energy spent, you get cost of money. While when you plan in control environment agriculture system, you can cut a lot of this cost. So I would like just to finalize this by highlighting the need of conducting economical analysis of the capital cost, of the production cost, of the price of the product, because you are aiming to produce a prime product here where there's no pesticide, where the economic chemical structure or nutritional value is higher. So you don't expect this to be compared with something grown in the field or in greenhouses where maybe the quality is not as high as you would like it to be. And the final point is the only way to include plant in the pharmaceutical industry is through growing a plant under completely controlled environmental conditions. So this would be like a niche center where you focus on the high value crops. By including this technology, if, for example, taking, you know, again, you know, the note from Dr. Shalabi comment, just 2% of the land in Jordan is used for agricultural production. I would, you know, rather focus, you know, the use of these 2% on strategic crops like wheat, even greenhouses like tomato, like crops, and take away the herb and little vegetable to put it maybe in the desert, not in the desert, in the dry land close to the city, and focus this in controlled environment agriculture. Do local study where I can play with the structure of the building to reduce the need of air conditioning, and maybe establish a center, take it forward to see how we can localize, you know, this technology. And connecting this again to Saeed, you know, talk, Mr. Saeed talk, he was able to localize the green wall technology, and I'm pretty sure he was able, looking at his slide, to significantly decrease the cost of this. So there is a technology that need to be important. It's difficult to localize at this stage, but there are some elements that local community and local institution can play an essential role, you know, to develop, and this would reduce the cost of this technology. Apology for taking, you know,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
But
wonderful.
This is the idea I would like to make. Thank you.
Interesting comments. Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. Does anybody have any question? Omar from RSS. I don't know if, because somebody from the virtual was raising his hand. I don't know, no, his name is Muhammad. Maybe he put his hand. How much does it cost to start a small automated project? I don't know who's gonna answer this question. How much does it cost to start a small automated project? Do you mean controlled environment agriculture project, or the green wall that Saeed just has presented before Saeed? Okay, can we answer this question, Dr. Hale or Nick, Dr. Paul?
Would you like me to jump into this?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, it's difficult to give a clear, definite answer to this, because it really depends on the scale of the project. So to start, you can start with something quite simple, as we mentioned, earlier, desktop. So, unit, you can place it in your desktop. This will cost nothing really, a bit of light hydroponic system. So it's not a unit, coffee unit, or the unit that you can place in a restaurant or at home. It does not cost much, because you don't need to have fully automated unit to place it at your home really, because you don't need to get a dosing system to automatically manage your nutrition, for one simple unit. You can dilute your solution yourself, add it to that tank, and this become quite cheap. Now it depends on the scale you would like it to take it, in the production you would like to get. Fully automated, very small unit is not economically valuable. So you need to do some manual stuff to make it, possible to use. So at very low level, I would not recommend to look for fully automated system, because it is not worth it really. You can, for example, instead of buying dosing system, automated dosing system, you can add your nutrition manual, in your kitchen. It takes you a couple of minutes and you can produce hundreds of plants. The fully automated system would make sense when you would like to scale up. This is my personal recommendation.
Perfect, thank you so much. Well, Nick, yes, please. Go ahead.
I think Hale has answered part of the question well. I think to solve scaled problems, one will need to move to larger automated installations, and to that effect, we're working with funding partners to enable the solution to be a three-way solution: the technology provider, somebody who funds the investment, and then the operator. And by combining those three elements, I think it's possible to provide an entry point that works. The difficulty always is to get the cost of production to a point at which it is commercially viable. And so I do believe you need to go down the automation route, and I do believe we have to combine funders with operators.
You control it environment.
Can we mute? Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much. Dr. Hale, do you have any further comment? Probably it's an old hand.
Yeah, well, not really, unless there is a question. And I think it's worth, thinking what's next, from this workshop, how this technology can be applied, and, what's your plan? This is something, I would be interested to know about. But from my side, I have no further comments unless there's a question for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Professor McFuller, please.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, come back on some of those comments that have been made so far. This whole thing is going to be driven eventually by the economics of food production and the economics of food supply to the consumer. And if the price, as we see at the moment, keeps going up and up and up, then you will find that the population will start to turn towards growing it themselves. How can I reduce the cost of my food bill, and how can I grow things myself? We've seen that time and time again happen during extreme times of war, for example. And the answer is, in a rain-fed agriculture, most people can go out and dig up their garden and grow some vegetables. In the situation you've got in the Middle East, most people cannot walk outside and dig up their garden and grow vegetables, because they have either the temperature is too high, it's too dry, or they don't have the capability. So one thing that you can anticipate you will need to provide for people in the future is an affordable home growing kit that allows them to grow some, not all, but some of perhaps their most expensive vegetables and fruits and salads. And they will then feel reassured that they can make a contribution to their own nutrition and their household budget which leaves them more of their household budget to buy the ever-increasing, more expensive commodity products like their rice or their wheat or their meat or whatever there is there. So a mixed economy will be there, but that's going to be driven by the food prices. And we can anticipate that is going to get more and more acute. So there's an immediate need to be able to provide home growing ability. Now that's one aspect of controlled environment agriculture, which Hail was just talking about, which is actually relatively easy, but needs the availability of kits, whatever those kits look like, quickly. Then the second aspect is to be able to start to produce as a nation your own production in a more regulated and guaranteed way, instead of just relying on agriculture, soil-based systems. And that's where your bigger investments come in, the things like we've been hearing about from Grow Pure and Jones Foods, where you'll need big companies to enter into, or government companies to enter into a big investment on the understanding that this has got a 5, 10, 15-year lifespan, and they will be able to reap back the capital costs over a long period of time and make this thing profitable for some time. So I think there's almost two scales to think about here: the home-based scale, but also the industrial-based scale. And that industrial-based scale requires value engineering. Value engineering is taking an existing proof of concept, which is expensive, and making it affordable. And we see that happen all the time with technology. So for solar farms, it was a very, very expensive system. And then over time, the engineers were able to value engineer it downwards until it becomes affordable. We see it with all sorts of technologies that are introduced. And what's happening in the controlled environment agriculture field at the moment is a bit more of that value engineering, pushing it down to make it more affordable, to make it bigger, to make that investment. This is where I think you need to be in the market, and you need a system there on the ground, because you cannot just go around the world and purchase what is existing at the moment, because it won't be necessarily fit for purpose for your situation. So you do need an organization within country, you do need some demonstration units, and you need to work with a wide variety of partners such that you can begin to look for those value engineering systems, both for the home market and for the industrial market.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've raised very important points, Professor Fuller. The issue of fit-to-purpose units is quite important. You've raised the issue of home-based units and industry-based units, and I think it's quite important to demonstrate such units in order to scale it up afterwards. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Dr. Hill, do you have any comments?
No, not really. I mean, I would be interested, to see the numbers coming from, the research unit that my colleagues in Saudi Arabia at CACS, Dr. Abdullah and Engin Abdulaziz, running. I've looked in the past at number from, for example, from Qatar and from other Gulf countries. And when you look at the price of food in the market and the cost of food production using this system, there's a huge difference. So I feel there's big potential for this technology to be applied in the Middle East. So hopefully things will progress forward.
Thank you so much. And by the way, we are going to send a form, it's an evaluation form, along with some questions to hear from you how to enhance collaboration, how to push this topic forward. This template, this form will be sent today to all of you. So we need to hear from you and to build on your knowledge as well. If there's no further comment, I'm going to close this workshop. Thank you so much.
Just one final comment,
please.
Maya, just before I forget, Professor McFuller and myself are acting as guest editor in journal, Plant Journal.
Yes, please.
With good variant birth factor, and we've been offered 10% discount for whoever, would like to participate in this special issue related LED lighting system with controlled environment agriculture, provided that they have participated or they have attended this workshop. So once you attend this workshop, I believe you will receive a participation certificate, and you will be entitled of 10% discount of any paper that gets submitted to the special issue.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Excuse me, I forgot to announce that. I'm supposed to announce that, but excuse me, Dr. Well, okay. Thank you so much. So I'm going to close this workshop. Thank you, colleagues, friends who have joined us through Zoom platform, and to colleagues who have joined us at RSS. Thank you so much for joining and staying to the end of this workshop. Thank you so much.
شكرا.
شكرا. الله يعافيكم. شكرا جزيلا.